This regularly scheduled commission meeting to order. Commissioner Mazon is running just a couple minutes late, and Commissioner Coleman is out sick for tonight, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Just 1 minute delayed here. Before I ask for an approval of the agenda, I do want to go ahead and remove item 7 from the agenda. That is the CDBG Economic Development Grant. The Neighborhood Revitalization Grant will continue on tonight's agenda. I do also want to make sure that the applicants for the CDD conversations are aware that we are down one commissioner. That creates the opportunity for a split vote. So if any applicant would like to table their application until we have a full dais, if they'd like to go ahead and make the presentation, let the commission hear and sleep on it, right, that's fine as well. But you always have the right as the applicant before we call the vote to say, I'd like to table it. And you can kind of read the tea leaves and see how the questions are going, and maybe the commissioners will be nice and tell you how they're what they're thinking before we call the vote, just in case. So with that caveat and that one change, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as it was published?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin. Who's the second? Commissioner Farnsworth seconded the motion. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais?
Yes.
Public comments, questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, 3-0, with Commissioner Mazon running tardy. Would you please stand for the invocation given tonight by Pastor Ian Campbell from the Newberry United Methodist Church? Please remain standing after the invocation for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Pastor, we appreciate all that you're doing with the Pumpkin Patch, all the teams and sports organizations, clubs you're helping out. So thank you for being here tonight to give the invocation as well.
Pumpkins are still here till Friday, so
All
come
right.
get them before.
Go get your pumpkin.
Yeah.
Or your third pumpkin.
Yeah. Fifth, whatever. God who goes by many names, we give you thanks for this day. We give you thanks for this community, for the leaders, and all who are here. We ask for continued protection and strength through the rest of an already difficult season of storms. And as this meeting opens, we thank you for being here with us. Preside over this meeting, even when different opinions arise. Provide a spirit of unity. Help us to listen well and to share well. Ignite a spirit of camaraderie in this room. May the work tonight be about a shared mission and vision. Amen.
Amen. Commissioner Clark. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor Ian and Commissioner Clark. We appreciate it. Commissioner Clark is in the house. He'll join us here. Commissioner Mazon is in the house. I was in the middle of saying thank you. Yeah. All right. And we have a presentation from FEMA Community Assistance presentation here tonight. Mike, are you going to introduce our presenter to us?
Yes.
I didn't get a
Yes,
name
Mr.
here on
Mayor.
the agenda. I'm sorry.
And actually, I didn't get her name either. My apologies with that.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's right up there. LaShonda Leasy. Did I say that right? Well, welcome, madam.
LaSharda.
Yeah, sure. Hi, hello. So I know I'm kind of late. Please excuse me for the delay. My primary focus were the county governments initially. So now I'm getting a chance to kind of work my way in throughout all of the counties so far. But as you all know, typically each county has 60 days from the date of the declaration to apply for assistance. The deadline so far has been extended for Helene, so it is November 27th. Everyone who lives in the county, they're eligible to apply for assistance. Now, the programs that have been activated so far for Helene and Milton differ a little bit. There's Operation Blue Roof through the United States Army Corps of Engineers, which are like the blue tarps that are going around on people's homes so far for Milton. I'm pretty sure if anyone, who has experienced that type of damage to their homes for Helene, if they need it, they could contact and apply as well. But so far, that's there for Milton. Also, disaster unemployment assistance has been activated so far. Typically, residents will still have to go through the state to apply for unemployment, but that's also there like an added layer that FEMA is providing as well. So far, there are a couple of disaster recovery centers that have been open, so it's not required for anyone to be a resident of that particular county to visit that disaster recovery center to apply for assistance. There's one in St. Lucie, there's one in Martin, Indian River, DeSoto, and Taylor so far. So the one in Taylor, there was just a new location. That information has been pushed to y'all so far. But there's been a media advisory that's gone out as well, just to kind of let everyone know where the new address is for the location in Taylor County. There are three main ways that we like to encourage people to apply for assistance. So you can visit disasterassistance.gov. It's just spelled out the way it sounds. Go online and fill out an application. You can call 1-800-621-3362. And, over the phone, someone can help you that way. And also, you can text or download the FEMA app. Text 43362 with your zip code, and you get a list of the DRCs as far as, where you could go and apply. For some people, it may be simpler for them to do it online. If they don't want to do it online, they could go ahead and call. So far, 126 million, a little over 126 million has been provided through the Individual and Households Program to survivors within the counties that were affected. I can give you a list, or read out rather, the list of counties that were affected so far for Helene and that have received assistance. Give me 2 seconds. So that is Charlotte, Citrus, Columbia, Dixie, Franklin, Gilchrist, Hamilton, Hernando, Hillsborough, Jefferson, Lafayette, Lee, Leon, Levy, Madison, Manatee, Pasco, Pinellas, Sarasota, Sawana, Alachua, Baker, and those are just like a couple so far that have been eligible to receive assistance. But we highly encourage anyone who lives in those counties to go and apply. It's non-taxable income. It doesn't affect your taxes. It doesn't affect any government assistance that you receive. So everyone, as long as you are a resident of the county, then you're eligible to apply. And they will walk you through the steps to let you know which FEMA programs you qualify for. That's the individual assistance side. Public assistance, which I know y'all may have more vested in that so far, that's going to be more of your infrastructure. So if you ask me questions, just like shoot me an email about it, and I can kind of route it and go from there, or look and see what it is that I can find. And also I ask for citizen inquiries. Some municipal and county governments have processes and protocols that they go through their county admins or municipal government administrations first, and then counter route it to FEMA. That's perfectly okay with me, and whatever is most comfortable and convenient for y'all. But if anyone contacts, or let's just say they walk up and they're like, "Hey, Mayor Marlowe," they just see you on the sidewalk, "Hey, Mayor Marlowe, I got a problem with FEMA. I need to know what's happening, what's going on." You can just call me or email me, shoot that to me, and then we'll go through the process of reviewing their case and seeing how we can help them. But I'd love to sit and talk with y'all. I haven't gotten a chance to talk with y'all so far, just to see how we can help get the dynamics of your district, just build relationships, go from there.
Well, I would say absolutely let's do that. At some point in time, if you can leave a card with Mike, that'd be great. And I know that I've seen a social media post about FEMA assistance and those kind of things. I think I've shared the one or two that we put. I'm assuming that a lot of the contact information that you rattled off is part of that, some way, shape, or form. If anything is new in what Ms. Lasarda is saying, let's make a new post so we can introduce her to the community. Thank you for what you're doing. Question, Commissioner Clark.
Yes, so while we're here for the public, if the citizens have trees down and they paid to get those trees removed, would that be a part of this? Is that part of something, or is this just damage to homes and fences and?
How small does it?
Where can the citizens and what can they expect out of the FEMA for cleanup?
So FEMA focuses more on the public property debris removal. Most cities have, if not contractors, they have volunteers or just
so this
community.
ain't for the citizens in their own homes or houses?
They can apply for assistance for their personal and property damages.
Yes,
if you're a renter, you would have to apply for the personal property that you have in the home.
Okay.
If you're the property owner, then you could apply for assistance for damage to that home. But as far as down fences or any of the particulars, it'd be better to go through it, because I don't want to give anyone a no and say, "Oh, that doesn't happen."
Sounds good.
but oftentimes it's very case specific. The debris removal portion of it is going to be covered through your emergency protective measures, long-term recovery, and the debris removal portion is guaranteed when you receive the declaration. So that's categories A and B. The rest of it is going to go down through like your bridges, your roads, your buildings, your pump stations, anything that needs to be elevated. That'll be your long term of what's happening so far. Certain things that may not necessarily be covered through your emergency protective measures, you're going to have those conversations with the state, your wonderful state of Florida that does such an amazing job for its counties and municipalities. But you'll have that conversation with them as far as what could be done to protect and preserve a life and property.
Got it. Thank you.
I think our wastewater facility plant was damaged right around $49 million. You can get with, I meant $59 million is what did I misspeak on that? So you can't even see it, right? If you drive out there, you'll see all the trees are piled up all over the place. I think, yeah. So if you can help, we'll get with you and we'll have a couple calls. We'll work that out, okay? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
No, thanks.
Before she goes? All right.
Mr. Mayor, just real quickly, LaSharda has been at every city commission meeting that I've been at, and I have never seen, in the years I've been doing this, somebody from FEMA, a governmental specialist like LaSharda that's given the support to the communities, and she's out there and doing the outreach and all that. I just want to commend her for what she's doing and appreciate your support to all of our local communities. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you so much. And as a special treat, you don't have to stay to the whole end of the meeting. We understand if you walk out. You know, it's a little awkward when you just do your bit and you leave, but we get it. We understand. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, the commission would like to hear from you frequently and often, so they set aside the public announcement section at the very beginning of the meeting. If you want to announce something, you met a ghost at a haunted tour this weekend, anything like that, you can let the commission know. If you need to make a comment that's a little bit longer, we have an extended period of public comment at the end of the night. Anybody like to tell us about a festival coming up or lost dog? No? All right, we'll move right along to the consent agenda. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it was published. I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Clark. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That's going to move us to item 8, because we scratched item 7, public hearing for community development block grant neighborhood revitalization. Very excited. I know we got a lot of excited residents who just missed the first round and hoping that this one comes back around. Go ahead.
Different program.
Different program. This isn't the houses, neighborhood revitalization.
This is roads, streets
Oh.
and roads. The housing is housing. Mr. Mayor, this is the second public hearing to solicit comments from the public on our application for the Community Development Block Grant for small cities for federal fiscal year 2023. The city, if awarded, intends to use these funds to repave existing streets in low to moderate income areas. Areas of the city's existing roadway located in low and moderate income neighborhoods are in dire need of repair and have become extremely worn. These funds from this grant program will help the city realize this strategic goal and allow for a safer and more effective transportation network.
So this isn't the houses. Is this the same application that we just missed the deadline on last time? Same roads right around MLK, all these back here. All right.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
So we'll get it this time. We're on track. Questions? You actually saw this application a long time ago. So this will give us money to pave all the roads, the dirt roads.
I just want to say, I hope we win it so we can finish it.
Yeah. Well, if we submit it, we'll win it. That's all we got to do. All right. Any other things you need besides a positive motion?
Open a public hearing, accept
Okay.
comments, and close the public hearing.
All right. Then we will open the public hearing section of this. Since we didn't have a presentation on the screen for you and you weren't here the first time around, if you go due north of here, a couple blocks in, you'll run in, you'll leave the paved roads and you'll hit some dirt roads. Those dirt roads will go all the way around the Martin Luther King Community Center, not all the way around, but around that area town. This community block development grant would allow us to pave those. Is it a matching grant or is it there's a small match. So very, very important that we get it downtown infrastructure project. So if you want to make a public comment about that, we'd love to hear your thoughts, ideas, support, criticism. I gave you everything I got. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing section of this and return to the commission. Do I have a motion? Do I need a motion? We don't need one, actually. Don't need, we just had to have the public hearing. All right, that will lead us to item 9, second reading of readoption of the Westone Planned Residential Development. Mr. Attorney, would you please read on second reading for the third time, ordinance 24th time, 2024-34.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is readoption of an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida for large-scale local land use plan amendment to ordinance number 4-91 as amended relating to an amendment to the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan in accordance with sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 of the Florida statutes, providing for a change in future land use classification from agriculture to residential low density on certain lands consisting of 250 acres more or less within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, more particularly described in Exhibit A attached to this ordinance, authorizing transmittal of the large-scale land use map amendment to the Florida Department of Commerce, providing for an amendment to the land use plan, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2024-34 CPA 22-06.
Thank you, sir. John
Yes,
Paul.
sir.
Thank you,
Take
Mr.
it
Mayor.
away.
Thank you. For the record, John Paul Perez with the Community Development Department. This is the second reading for the readoption of the ordinance for the Westone Planned Residential Development Future Land Use, which is changing it from agriculture to residential low density. We'll just be doing a quick overview of staff and then getting into the recommended motion. So this is odd. This is not my correct presentation. Yeah.
If you go back far enough, like 18 months, you'll find it the first time around.
Yes. Perhaps. So, without visual aids, I'll just summarize the request. The ordinance 2023-29 was adopted on October 9th, 2023, and we received word from the state that they're enforcing the 10-day rule pretty firmly. We had missed that 10-day window for the transmittal of the adopted ordinance, so we're just readopting it tonight. Nothing has changed about the petition, and there was an additional slide I wanted to just touch on the environmental issue that came up last time.
I think that's really the only remaining question. So if this is the first time you're in the audience, the Westone Plan was approved through P&Z and the commission in 23. We missed a 10-day window to submit that to the state. We have to, that's why it says readoption. So we saw this presentation last time. There was some miscommunication between the county and some of our residents about what had or hadn't been done or what the process was. And I have not had a chance to read it, but I did see some emails today. So let's just jump right into that. So normally for a legislative hearing, if we missed up on the presentation, I'd say, well, let's table till we get the presentation back. But we've heard of the presentation at this point many times. So I think we're good with the presentation, but this last slide about the environmental, I think, is the only pressing issue. So let's make sure that we've done everything we're supposed to do and we're in line. So jump right to that. Is this the?
Yeah, this is
Okay.
the actual slide that I prepared for this conversation. So we had engaged the county in an advisory capacity to review the environmental reports, phase 1 and phase 2, which were recently done as part of the application. We had received comments from the county. We implemented them, and this is the result of the implementation, where you see the disturbed areas are not part of the blue area being the limits of the CDD, the black hatch being the entirety of the PD. So as part of M3's development and proceeding with development of the site, those areas which are affected by the environmental advisory comments from the county are excluded from the development.
And they've been excluded.
ever since we got those comments back, we engaged in a year-long conversation with both the developer and the county. There was some confusion because I didn't report back to the county as to the actions that were being taken based on the comments that they provided, so that is, an error on my behalf. I just took the comments and then applied them, and we had reached a solution that we thought was adequate. We have re-engaged, or the county's re-engaged with us. We do have some meetings set up, so there's many more bites at the apple as this development proceeds in the event that there is some action that needs to be taken. But I believe that Dave McDaniel's taken a good measure in excluding those areas that are affected by the environmental concerns from the overall development, so those areas aren't disturbed. So being respectful of the comments that we did receive from the county.
And just to be clear, I mean, I think John Paul is being humble here and saying that it was an error, but there really isn't a procedure. We submit the application, they give comments, and then because we have a professional staff, there's just an expectation that we're going to review those comments and implement what we can, and we're going to do that. There really isn't, this isn't, in my knowledge, a back and forth. Have we met the bar? Do we have your permission? This is a collegial professional relationship. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily an error. It's just, we asked for your comments, you gave us your comments, and we implemented them, you know?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And so that concludes the talk on the environmental aspect. The application generally is just a readoption to satisfy state requirements, and that's why we're here today. So we're hoping to get that and get it transmitted tomorrow morning. That completes my presentation on this item.
Mr. New, I saw you had responded, but again, I've been in meetings ever since school let out. So was there anything pertinent for the commission to know? Because I'm not sure the commission had a chance to review those emails that John Paul missed, didn't mention. You want to add?
Mr. Mayor, I would just say that at the last meeting, I had indicated to the commission that the county had raised some concerns through a resident, and then he reported them at this meeting. And so I communicated with the county to say, hey, are there still things that are outstanding? Last Thursday, they responded with a list of five items, and we reviewed them and feel like there's nothing within the approval before the city commission tonight, and that includes this item or the CDD item, that need to be addressed. Now, we have requested a meeting with county staff so that we can get to, into the minute detail of what their concerns are. But at the broad level review, they've requested a phase 2 assessment, and we have one that's dated October 22, and we felt like, okay, that box has been checked. They wanted no private wells or irrigation, and we, our plan is that everyone connects to the city's municipal water system. And then the rest had to do specifically with the old landfill site or the old airstrip site. All of that has been just omitted from the plan development. So I don't suggest that those environmental issues have gone away, and that may still need to be looked at, but they no longer, in my opinion, have bearing on approvals related to this development, because it's not, they're not within the boundaries of this development. So I think that we can report to the commission that we've addressed everything that the county brought up. All those, like I said, some of the environmental issues may still exist, and there may still be further work, but they're unrelated to the Westone development.
So what's going to happen with?
Commissioner Mazon.
So what's going to happen with those areas? They're going to be roped off? What? How does that work?
Hang on one second.
They're no longer part of the development, so they'll remain private property by their current property owner. The one that was related to illegal dumping, as we understand it, recent illegal dumping in the last 2 years, as we understand it, the property owner didn't do the dumping, someone else did.
Yeah.
And so we will work with the property owner and likely Alachua County to ensure that there's no contamination as a result of that cleanup. The other 2 areas that the county noted are old cleanups dating back to the 1980s. And actually, Alachua County managed those cleanups back in the 1980s. We are under the impression that everything that needed to be done then was done. However, we welcome a conversation with the county to see if there's anything else. And recently, as 2 years ago, the developer got a Phase 1 and a Phase 2 environmental assessment performed that we forwarded to the county, and they commented on. So there's a new comment, or there's a comment that says the county would like a Phase 2 environmental assessment. And, so we need clarity. I initially presumed that the assessment we did in '22 checked that box. If they want one in '24, I think we need to have a conversation about, well, what merits a new Phase 2 environmental assessment, which we'll consider. And if it's warranted, we'll get with the property owner. That potentially is us. Part of the old airstrip is on City of Newberry property, so that potentially is us, but it's not in the Westone development. So we're having a meeting with the county. We'll find out if there are any outstanding issues that need to be addressed, and we'll move forward. Particularly if there are action items, the commission will be apprised of that, because you'll have to approve whatever action we intend to take.
I'm not in favor of even opening the door with the county of saying those kinds of things. The county checked this box in 1980. We affirmed that again. And it seems to me like every time we ask, the answer is, yeah, we want you to do another one. We want you to do another study. We want you to do another study. Well, it's been 2 years. We want you to do another study. And I think the question is, what in the world merits this level? You guys gave your comments. We addressed the comments. Again, most of this would have been handled with a phone call to us to say, hey, we got an email from a resident with these concerns. Can you tell us? I see that you guys submitted all these studies. And you gave it to us, and we looked at it and gave you some comments, right? Where are we at now? And I think a lot of this miscommunication could have been mitigated at that point right there. So I appreciate the collegial attitude to the county, but I don't see it being reciprocated to us right now. And I think that if you keep saying, well, do you want us to do another study, then they're just going to keep saying yes. Nothing has changed in 2 years' time out there. And I don't think it's fair to hold a property owner responsible, because we have the same thing. If you live in the country, once you hit a dirt road, people think I can just pull over here and throw my trash out. It's one of the reasons why I support what we pay for the dump, because then we can say, hey, there's a dump, right? You don't have to throw your trash out here because we all collectively pay for the dump. So it's a frustrating conversation for me for reasons that shouldn't involve the resident or the applicant. It really is about the bureaucracy going back and forth here, and whether or not we're all working together on the same team or we're working against each other. I know the developer wanted to say something. Did you still want to make a comment, or did you change your mind? The applicant, I'm sorry.
Hello, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Dave McDaniel. I'm 3 Development. Mike actually referenced what I wanted to say, and that is that this entire issue was completely cleaned up under county oversight. FDEP approved it. We did water tests to determine whether there was still residue of the pesticides, and all were within an acceptable level. We decided, rather than fight the battle on the piece right over here in the middle of the property on the west side, that probably was the cleanest of all the studies that we did, and the county dialed in on that and wanted us to spend a whole bunch of money doing more work, and we just decided to just remove it from the development completely. And so that's where we are. We are not sitting in a situation where there are risks that have been left unattended to. This is not a situation where we've got a toxic problem that has not been addressed. So just want to be clear.
I appreciate that. And to be clear to our board and to the public, this board wouldn't, and our staff wouldn't let us get this far if there was a toxic issue. And that's what I find most frustrating about the county is the assumption that we would, right? The assumption that our staff would let something go, would not do their due diligence, would not call for the same studies. Every single person I'm looking at is very ethical and follows all the state laws, county laws, city laws, and for the county to assume otherwise, I think is offensive. All right. That's it. So we've got our suggested motion.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin,
Second.
second from Commissioner Clark. Okay, and those are two separate motions, or can we wrap those together? One. So the motion is to adopt the ordinance, and the motion is to authorize. Comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That's going to move us to item 10, second reading of readoption of the urban service area boundary amendment ordinance for the purpose of satisfying Florida statute transmittal requirements for adoption of large-scale local land use plan amendments. Mr. Attorney, would you please read on second reading ordinance 2024-35?
Yes, sir. This is a readoption of ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 relating to an amendment of the future land use plan map, expanding the boundary of the urban service area, future land use element, and related sub-elements in accordance with sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 of the Florida statutes, providing for an amendment to the land use plan, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2024-35, CPA 23-09, upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
John Paul, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, for the record, John Paul Perez, Community Development Department. The request before the Commission tonight, second reading for readoption of the USA boundary amendment. Our recommended motion is to adopt. Nothing's changed about the application from its original hearing or the first reading of this readoption. And just generally, this is the prior boundary. This is the adopted boundary, squaring it off on the radii of the circle. Ultimately, this is to achieve compliance with statute for the 10-day transmittal requirement. And our recommendation is to adopt and authorize the city manager or their designee to transmit the document to the Florida Department of Commerce. That completes my presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Maison. Any comments, questions, motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments, questions on the motion on the floor. Again, this is the fourth time we're voting on this one, so not meaning to rush it. Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Motion passes unanimously. That will move us to item 11, which is second reading of Westone Community Development District. Just want to remind everybody else we are down one commissioner. And I talked to John Paul at the beginning. I think there was an expectation that there would be a presentation of CDDs again before this. I seem to remember Commissioner Clark asking for that at the last one. We just need to be coached up again. So we don't have that, and we're down a commissioner. So if any of the applicants, want to go ahead and make your application, make your presentation, and then ask us not to vote, or if you're seeing a lot of heads nodding, like, okay, I've slept on it, right? So you can play it that way. We're infinitely flexible. Just know that I think there was an expectation that we would get trained a little bit more, coached a little bit more on CDDs. So some of the commission may not be ready to move forward tonight, and you have the right as the applicant to table your motion or table your application till the next meeting. If that's what happens, John Paul, let's make sure that we get that workshop PowerPoint presentation so we can kind of get back up to speed on, what CDDs are, how do we identify good ones from bad ones, what is a bad one, what does that even mean, all of those kinds of things, all right? So, no one got up and left, so I'm assuming everyone still at least wants to make their presentation. So, Mr. Attorney, would you, so we can get this thing started, on second reading, read ordinance 2024-36 into the record?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. This is an ordinance of the City of Newberry establishing the Whetstone Community Development District pursuant to Chapter 190 of the Florida statutes, providing for the district's external boundaries, providing for functions and powers of the district, providing for the initial Board of Supervisors of the district, addressing correction of scrivener's errors, providing for severability and an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2024-36 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.
All right, John Paul, you're a busy man tonight.
Yes, sir. So I'm going to introduce the item. There was a minor change between first and second reading to address some of the comments. It's a very minor change. And then I'm going to turn it over to the experts we have in the room to address any concerns that the commission may have about CDDs generally or this petition. I do want to advise the board that this is second reading for the Westone. And in conversation, if a majority is going to vote not in favor of passing this tonight, that you provide an opportunity for the applicant to request a continuance. The item following this one is the first reading for the ranch. So it's the introduction reading. So I'll give a presentation on that item. And then let the board decide as they may with that first reading as well. So getting into the second reading of the Westone Community Development District, it is located on 237 acres of the development of the PRD, so, pardon me. The recommended motion is to adopt. This is the location of the Westone Community Development District within the city limits, 15th Ave and 337. Here you can see the district boundaries as shown on the readoption hearing for the land use. The boundaries are different. This one is contracted. So instead of it being 258 acres, this one's 237. They excluded some areas that are conflicted. So here you can see the difference in the boundaries, purple being the district and green being the PRD boundaries and some of the nearby neighbors. We did send this also to the supervisor of elections as just a good faith notice that, hey, the city is contemplating this. They do have an involvement because of the election process and the district being quasi-governmental. I would like to thank Janine for that suggestion. That was on point. We did collapse the conditions into one condition, being an interlocal agreement. The city carries interlocal agreements with the county currently for procedural things that we need to engage in. Most recently, we brought you the E911 addressing ILA. All it did was elaborate on how those obligations unfurl. So who does what when, and what's the expected reaction to that action. So it's essentially what that ILA covers, and we would expect something similar for this ILA just to cover those obligations in Florida Statute 190 to be upheld. In addition, the city is going through wastewater reservation capacity agreements with all the developers currently. While the CDD is not the developer of the site, they are the quasi-governmental agency or a glorified HOA that will be overseeing the funding and whatnot. It is held by the developer in the very beginning, so there is that, and they only get voted out once there's enough seats filled in that particular section of the development.
John Paul, does that answer, because last time I asked if a CDD could help bond money for wastewater capacity, does that mean a yes? Does that mean a no? Is that a totally different thing?
We have some folks in the office that are in the room that can answer that question precisely. I can't give you a precise answer. The discussions I have had have been because the district is governmental and not the actual developer. Attaching that to the CDD would be ineffective, essentially. And would be more appropriately attached to whatever construction documents are granted to the developer at that time.
No, they're powwowing. Okay, so we'll come back to that.
The ILA, I got agreements that it can at least acknowledge the requirement to enter into a wastewater capacity reservation when the appropriate time arises for that agreement to be entered into. I do understand from Dave McDaniels they have intentions of submitting for Westone immediately, and so that that would be something we'd engage in at that time on the construction plans.
Okay.
Moving on, still carrying that second condition, which was previously condition number 4. Just restating or reciting that the city does not carry the debt obligation that the district does, that if the bonds are defaulted on per Florida Statute 190, city has no obligation to assume that debt. So that stays with the district and stays with the residents there.
Hang on, John, I'll go back to that. So we're taking out financial reporting candidate information?
So,
We're putting
no.
that in a different place.
We're just collapsing it into the ILA, saying that these are the topics that the interlocal agreement will cover. They're already outlined in Florida Statute 190, as you'll hear probably repeatedly tonight from the experts in the room. But we're simply elaborating on how those processes will unfurl between the district and the city in the ILA, but those will stay. They're already part of the statute. They're already summarized in the condition requiring the LA to cover these topics, and that'll just carry through in the ILA itself.
So which document bears more scrutiny, the CDD or the ILA by this body?
Oh, I would say both. I wouldn't say neither.
So the CDD is like a comp plan and the ILA is like a LDR? Trying to put this in terms I'll understand.
The
No?
interlocal agreement is simply that.
HOA.
It's an agreement between two bodies to fulfill certain obligations. And the CDD is we're considering the establishment of the district. So if the board approves the CDD tonight, that's establishing a district. The ILA is just something that spurs out of that request. And
So the
it's
CDD
not abnormal.
that Commissioner Coleman was a fan of last time was the one in the villages. Does the CDD in the villages operate with the ILA?
Oh, great question. I don't know. I'm going to step away from the podium and get one of the folks up here, because this is a very small community. I'm sure these folks have touched something
Okay.
close to it or relevant to it. So,
I mean, because this is the kind of thing that I think is where the coaching comes in, right? If the better CDDs operate also with an ILA, well, we need to know that. So let's let the experts come down. And who's taking the expert? You gonna bring the expert guns again? All right.
Well, I will at least start. And so let me say, I do not have, my partner was here, I'm sorry,
Oh, yeah.
thank you. My first name is Wes, last name's Haber. I'm with the law firm of QTech Rock. And we represent the petitioner for the CRD, M3 Weststone Developers LLC. And it sounds like the commission would like to have another overall explanation on CDDs. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation to address that this evening. We are certainly happy to do that. I did want to come up, sort of go over some of the more basic points regarding CDDs, what they are, what I see as some of the bigger concerns that cities and counties that we go before throughout the state ask. I'll start with the ILAs, the interlocal agreement, because it seemed to be the topic of discussion. So the ordinance creating the CDD as presently drafted would result in the creation of the CDD. It includes language that says before a plat would be approved within the community, the CDD and the city would enter into an ILA that provides for the numerous items that are described, namely that the CDD will make the city aware of the types of resident complaints that deal with covenants, I think is the language that was used in the proposed interlocal agreement, that the district will follow Chapter 190 Florida statutes as it relates to board candidate information and election day to ensure that residents within the community are going to get their place on the board in accordance with Florida law, that the financial reporting information will be retained by the CDD as public record and provided to the city as it deems appropriate. With respect to the cap reservation, it indicates that to the extent authorized by Florida law, that the CDD will do that. There are both state and federal laws that a CDD needs to comply with. So we will want to get input from both my office as well as a bond lawyer to make sure that bond proceeds can be used for that purpose. So that's why we said in the interlocal agreement, we will do that if we're legally able to do it. And that's where how we addressed it. So that's the interlocal agreement as it relates to the ordinance. The ordinance would create the CDD, sort of the protection measure for the interlocal agreement, because it's not being entered into simultaneously with the ordinance, is that before a plat would be approved, the interlocal agreement would be entered into. So before they can meaningfully move forward with development within the CDD's boundary, the CDD and the city would enter into an ILA.
Okay. Questions about that before he moves on? Yeah? Okay. All right. Yes? No?
So for clarification purposes, and I want to confirm with my client, we do not intend on seeking a vote this evening. I am merely up here to try and explain any questions you may have this evening, understanding that we are also happy to come back again with a broader presentation to discuss CDDs in general. I just wanted to, so a CDD at the most basic level is there to help facilitate the financing of the infrastructure improvements and then the operation and maintenance of those improvements.
So you can have a district map, and then the ILA is where you work out some of the finer details. What if you
Yeah.
disagree in the ILA? What happens to the CDD? What if you come to impasse in the ILA conversations?
If the ILA is not successfully entered into and we are unable to take advantage of the CDD mechanism, you need on petition by the landowner, the CDD can be dissolved. It would need to be an act of this council, so it wouldn't automatically dissolve. You need some affirmative action on the part of the landowner, but absent being able to move forward with a plat, I imagine the landowner may would have reason to seek the dissolution of the CDD.
And the CDD of the villages, which was used as the example of a very successful, does it have a CDD and ILA?
So an ILA is merely an agreement between the CDD and the city. I don't know if the CDDs in the villages have ILAs. My firm doesn't work on the villages.
Why are we
CDDs.
suggesting an ILA, I guess is how did that, between first and second reading,
Right.
how did we get a whole nother layer of this added?
Yeah, that was do you want to,
So ILAs are commonly used when there's two different bodies of government or that need to interact with each other. And you just need some sort of clarity as to how you're going to collaborate on achieving a goal. The proposition of an ILA came solely for me to consolidate our conditions into a central document that are those points of interaction between the CDD and the city. And it being laid out in an agreement between the two provides clarity both for staff and the city when it's interacting with the CDD. And I offer it as just a security blanket for the commission and proceeding, that they know that there's going to be some sort of official act that's a document that can be upheld in court, saying, hey, you have to do this above and beyond the statutes. So it's not going to be beyond anything that's already established in 190. It's just clarifying how we're going to interact with those obligations in 190.
Okay, Commissioner Clark?
It's for Wes, right?
yes.
On the same page as you, but you manage how many of these?
I'm sorry?
You manage,
Oh, my firm represents several hundred
Okay.
CDDs.
does any other city require this?
Osceola County, I can say with certainty, has an ILA requirement. As I said, I don't know about the villages. What I can tell you is.
But it's not common.
The vast majority of CDDs do not have ILAs as a matter of course. They may enter into an interlocal agreement if there's, let's say, sometimes there are shared recreation facilities where the city is going to own a portion of it, the CDD may be funding a portion of it, and those two parties want to have terms and conditions on how the sharing of the funding and operation, ownership, and maintenance of a particular improvement is going to happen. So Osceola County is the only county I'm aware of that mandates it. I must say that my firm represents hundreds of CDDs. Other lawyers work in other jurisdictions. I don't work in every jurisdiction in the state, so it's possible that I'm missing some jurisdictions.
But it
Not
don't seem
all
to be a common,
No, I do quite a few CDDs in northeast Florida, Jacksonville, Clay County, St. Johns County, Nassau County, and none of them require it as a matter of course. It's the only time we would use it is if there's a specific issue to be addressed.
okay. And secondly, which the builders here, like when they get the subdivisions, I done a little research from our last meeting, and it seems like when the CDDs come in, they borrow the money for all the infrastructure and all, but it also gives the builder a chance to make amenities. I know we're not into the PD, right? We're not into the plans yet to build, but would this be something that is going to help put amenities in the subdivision to make a better subdivision? Because it seems like it keeps the cost of the housing higher and a better community. So I'm just wondering, if we do the CDDs, will it give something better in this housing development?
Do I need to introduce myself again?
Yeah, please, we're in a different.
McDaniel, M3 Development. So in this particular development, during the development of Phase 2, there's a 16-acre old phosphate mine that we have spent a bunch of times looking at. We're going to do exhaustive tree survey, and we have a topo and all that sort of thing. We're going to turn that into a place of walking paths and places to sit and enjoy. I mean, I was down on the bottom of that pit, which is about 35 feet deep, and there was a live oak tree that had a trunk about that wide. So we know how old that hole was.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. I remember walking through there and having a distinct sense of like, wow, nowhere in Florida do I see a sheer wall like that. So the answer is we're going to be spending quite a lot of money on making that a recreational amenity. But adjacent to that, we're going to have extensive playground equipment, outdoor barbecues, places for people to hang out and enjoy the development. So the answer is yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Maison?
So what Clark said, so then we will get an opportunity to see the plans before we be able to determine which development will be CDDs?
So
Because according to your questions, you want to know, for instance, okay, so like, okay, the ranch. I know we already know what's going to go in the ranch, so the ranch is going to me, would be, I would say yes to a CDD there because I know it's going to be developed there, kind of from what he told us and from the remnants that rendering that he showed. So with the 337, you're like, are there going to be anything there that's going to make people want to buy property there because of the CDD, right? So prior to us saying, yeah, we want a CDD district out there, will we be able to know what's going to be built out there before we say, yes, make it a CDD district? Understand?
Basically, you're wanting the rendering,
That's
Commissioner.
it, yes, because then I'll be
That's
like,
what he's
okay,
asking.
so that's
He's
not
wanting
gonna
the
be,
rendering, Mayor.
that's not gonna be a spot
That's
where I
kinda
want a CDD, because I can't see anybody paying higher for that, for those houses, for the property, for what's out there. Make
Right.
sense?
I think I understand your question. It's strictly a timing thing. One thing I can say with respect to approval is that there's nothing within the community that can be built without your approval. So approving a CDD doesn't approve any improvements, but whether or not you will, it's not uncommon for CDDs to be established prior to being able to see a rendering, because the establishment and the use of a CDD is integral in determining the financing for those improvements. And if I had to guess, knowing whether or not you're going to have a CDD may impact what those improvements are. In other words, if you don't know whether you're going to have a CDD or not, because a CDD helps with having better a better project, better amenities as were just described. it's sort of what comes first, the cart or the horse. They may want to know, am I going to have a CDD before they spend the money to plan and develop improvements that they don't know whether they'll have a CDD or not to develop. So if we asked for a vote today, which, as I mentioned, we are not, and you approve the ordinance, then the clear answer would, we don't have the types of renderings he's looking for today. Is that so? To answer your question factually today, because that's the best I can do, the answer would be no. We'd be asking for you to establish the CDD with the understanding that the developer would use that CDD to maximize the financing for the improvements to benefit the project, to get the best development, the best amenities it possibly can get, but you would be approving the CDD in advance of seeing the renderings. And that's more often than not the way it works, because a CDD is part and parcel on deciding what those improvements will be.
Yeah, Commissioner Farnsworth.
I guess we will have another presentation, but just have a few questions. With the CDD, what are the benefits for the citizens of Newberry?
So there are lots of benefits for the residents within the CDD who will ultimately be citizens of Newberry, in that as we've been discussing, a CDD will result in a better project, but a CDD as a unit of government has more transparency for the project than you would have without a CDD. And that is to say, all of the meetings need to be noticed and open to the public, so all the residents, both inside and outside the CDD, have an opportunity to hear what the CDD is doing. All the records of the CDD are subject to public records. The board within the CDD is subject to the Sunshine Law, so they cannot meet and talk about CDD items outside of a publicly noticed meeting. So there's lots of transparency for both surrounding residents, but certainly within the residents of the community. The CDD also benefits from sovereign immunity along the lines of other units of government. So the benefit to the residents is that for improvements that the CDD owns, such as the amenities that Mr. McDaniel described, if an issue arises that may result in a lawsuit, there's benefit in that there's some protection on the amount of damages that the whole community may be subject to because of those sovereign immunity protections that a CDD affords. And then lastly, because it's going to result in a nicer community, you likely are going to have higher values in your homes, which will allow you to have greater ad valorem revenue, which the CDD doesn't levy. We do special assessments completely separate and apart from the ad valorem taxes and the tax base that the city will generate, that they can then spend for the benefit of the entire city, not only the residents within the CDD community.
So whenever the the residents of that community are taxed for the CDD, that comes directly from the county taxes. So you don't have, the city doesn't have any control or anything over that.
The CDD must comply with Florida law as it relates to the levy of assessments, but the city doesn't have control over the manner in which the CDD levies its assessments. It is an independent unit that has the power to levy the assessments for the financing and maintenance mechanisms it needs.
And that, is this the money supposed to be for improvement of the roads and the?
Exactly. So there are two types of assessments. The debt assessments, which will go to pay off the bonds that the CDD issues. The proceeds of those bonds will be used for public infrastructure, roadways, water and sewer, stormwater, amenity facilities are large.
And once those items are paid for, does the CDD go away?
doesn't, in large part, because the benefits that the CDD offer, well, one, the bonds that the district issues to pay for those improvements will have a term where the CDD needs to repay the bonds. So the CDD will need to be in place at a minimum for as long as those bonds are outstanding, typically a term of 30 years. But even after that, the CDD will often own the stormwater improvements, the recreation improvements, and it's viewed largely as a beneficial entity for the ownership of those types of improvements. There are water management districts that have said outright, we prefer for a CDD to own stormwater improvements over an HOA, because the CDD is a more secure entity than an HOA to undertake the types of operation, maintenance that is required for stormwater improvement. So even after the bonds go away, it's not uncommon for CDD to remain for the ongoing ownership and maintenance of those types of improvements.
And are the roads ever transferred to the city? Are they?
They certainly can be, and I would say the vast majority of CDDs finance the roads and convey them to the city for the city's ownership at no cost to the city. So the CDD funds the roads and conveys them to the city for the city to own.
And then it's up to us to maintain them at that point?
It would be if you accept them.
Can I jump in on your question, Commissioner? Because and I think in your third and final advantage, this is what you said, but I want to make sure I'm here, because in my mind, the answer to your question is, what does the city benefit from a CDD from people that don't live in that neighborhood, is it takes one neighborhood's long-term maintenance off of our books, but not if we accept the conveyance of the roads. In my mind, I was perceiving the CDD as it replaces the sidewalks, it fixes the roads, it fixes, but that's not. But that is laid out in the CDD, or is now in what we're proposing now, that level of detail be laid out in the interlocal?
Yeah, so the CDD statute authorizes a CDD to finance, own, and maintain sidewalks and roads. The ordinance adopting the CDD would just establish the CDD, giving it the ability to do that, and then it would be between the CDD, the developer, and the city to determine who's ultimately going to be the owner and maintainer of those improvements. There are lots of CDDs that construct the roads and continue to own them, and they are the party responsible for the maintenance, for the ownership and maintenance of streets and sidewalks. There are other CDDs where the county and the city want the CDD to convey those to the county for ownership, operation, maintenance, and that's what occurs. So.
Why?
Yeah.
Why would they want to
Right.
have them transferred if the residents of that community are paying for them? Why would we want to take them up?
One concern that I heard raised, I think at a prior meeting, was if a CDD is going to be able to finance that, will people outside the CDD be upset because the roads within the CDD are being maintained at a higher level? So the way to alleviate that, and I'm not suggesting that this is something you must do, would be for the city to take them, and then all the roads, both inside and outside the CDD, would be maintained at the same level, and those residents would not have that concern. That's the only, so when that issue was raised, what I told the council was the CDD would be happy to give the roads to the city if that was a concern of the council. At the same time, it's not, there are CDDs, as I said, that own and maintain roads.
Okay.
And you've done,
Commissioner Farnsworth, and then we'll go to Mr. Dale.
and you've done hundreds of these throughout the state. What percentage don't pass?
Less than, I want to say less than 5 and probably less than 2% don't
2%?
pass. It's, yeah, they're,
And do they give a specific reason why they didn't approve them?
why they did not approve.
Yeah.
I I've never had one not approved.
Okay.
So my partners.
So you got a lot on line right now. You got a lot at stake.
No. So my partners have experienced it, and I can certainly, but there are some cities that I'd be guessing, and I don't want to guess at something I don't know the exact answer to.
Okay.
Are you finished, Commissioner? Mr. New?
And I just wanted to provide some clarity on something that staff would hear and that I've heard my entire career. One is how public infrastructure is going to be conveyed to the city is funded. Whether, from the city, we're neutral or agnostic to it because it is either funded through a private commercial loan to the developer, or they may have cash on hand, but the developer pays for it. I presume he rolls that into the lot cost for the home, and the homeowner pays for it. But all of that infrastructure is conveyed to the city at no cost to the city, and then the city assumes maintenance responsibilities moving in perpetuity. And typically, the only criticism I ever hear from residents about road maintenance responsibilities is if there is a large subdivision in your community would privately maintain streets that they're maintaining. I often get some criticism that I pay the same taxes as everybody else in this town, but I'm paying to maintain all the public roads in this town, but my tax dollars don't go to maintain the private streets in this town. And I'm not saying that's a legitimate complaint. I can make the counter argument to any of those, but I'm just telling you that's the most common. There was a large gated community in the city that I previously worked for. At 1,100 homes in that community, it was irregular that this is unfair that we pay taxes to improve all the streets except the streets in our subdivision. So just a couple of thoughts related to Commissioner Farnsworth comments. And in the general sentiment, I would say one thing, that if they are conveyed to the city, then I think the answer of the CDD continuing to capture maintenance money for those roads needs to be addressed. If the CDD collects maintenance money for roads that get conveyed to the city, then we might want to have at least a conversation about, well, does the city get that money? Or I think just off the cuff, as I'm hearing this, I would say if the developer intends to convey them to the city, we collect property taxes to maintain roads, and so we don't think that the CDD necessarily should collect maintenance money for those roads that they then subsequently give to the city, unless they're planning on writing a check. And then I anticipate the residents would say, I'm being double taxed. I'm paying city taxes to maintain roads, and I'm paying CDD fees to maintain the same roads. But just some feedback from staff.
Okay, so let me, because to me, the answer to the Commissioner's question, the best answer was everything that Mike just said is irrelevant because they're going to have a CDD and they're paying for the roads and they're paying for the maintenance and it's off our books. If it is a shared responsibility, then I go back to the question I asked John Paul, because the devil's always in the details. And are the details going to be in the CDD or the details going to be in the interlocal? Because that's where we're going to have to figure out who's maintaining what.
And I would just offer one thing. Typically, one of our planning practices is we develop interconnectivity between subdivisions. And I'll give you the best example that comes right to mind is in Westone, Southwest 15th Avenue is intended to be a municipal collector street that is going to be funded in part by Westone, and I would imagine could be funded by the CDD. That road will serve that subdivision, but will serve a whole lot of other residents of Newberry that I think that they're expecting the city to maintain with city tax dollars. So I think if these roads are not conveyed to the public for public maintenance, our ability to interconnect with them with other public streets gets limited. There's going to be a resistance to connect a public street to a private street for the public to utilize. Just feedback.
All right, we're going to ask all the next applicant the same question so we can compare your answers. No, they're not going to get off of it. Yep.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
Again, Dave McDaniel, M3 Development. I actually think on this topic, we're getting ourselves a little bit tangled up in questions that are, we can simplify, if you will.
Please do. Bring Occam's razor in.
So the CDD creates the opportunity, the ability to raise money for development in a different means to deliver the lots. The same way we did in Avalon Woods, we used development loans to develop the lots. In the case of the CDD, we'll be using a bond to develop the lots. When you're concerned about, it costs all more money, the truth is, the market still sits down and says, how much am I making, how much payment am I going to make? And if they don't want to make the payment, they'll say, no, I don't like that one, I'll go to the other one. In other words, the home prices are usually somewhat less, or the amenities are somewhat better in this case. With regard to dedicating roads and utilities to the city, that is the most common way of developing a CDD, and it would be treated just exactly the way we do in Avalon. We don't collect any money to maintain the roads or the water and sewer system in Avalon, nor would we collect any money whatsoever for to maintain the roads in the CDD if the roads were dedicated to the city. We just simply are bringing in the same money that we would use to care for the common areas. It's more than an HOA because there's other governmental, they'll call it, CDD charges, but they don't have to do with maintaining facilities that we have dedicated to the city. So if you look at the CDD, again, the way Wes started it off with, it's a funding mechanism for the development of subdivisions, and it does result in higher quality product. That's the general rule. The agency, the CDD does provide a stronger, I'm going to call it government, but it's what somebody used the term HOA on steroids, or that's a nice way to look at it. It's a good way to look at it. It's a stronger way of managing and maintaining. The water management districts prefer it. So again, with regard to there are property taxes charged on every home in the CDD, and they will be based on the home price, the exact same as it would be in a development that doesn't have a CDD. So the city's receiving money, the county's receiving their money for the various activities, and if the roads were dedicated to the city, then in that case, the homeowners probably would be, like the city manager commented, would in fact be double charged in a sense. You collect property taxes to maintain roads, and then you're collecting so in our case, our intention at this point, just to be completely clear, and what our petition says, is that we do hope to dedicate the roads, water and sewer, as we do in other developments, to the city.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to ask you guys the same question I asked John Paul. If a CDD is a funding mechanism to get the initial infrastructure there, and we have a pretty good idea of the wastewater capacity that each of those residents will need, is there an opportunity for the CDD to be a funding mechanism for the developer to buy capacity?
We'll get an answer to that. Maybe we'll have to answer that later. But here's the important piece, and that is if there's monies needed to complete a development that the bonds aren't sufficient for, the developer needs to come up with the money to do that work. That's how it works.
Okay.
Things don't get left undone. You have to have a capital stack that will cover everything.
And to Commissioner Mazon's question, because I'm still not exactly, I understand that the rule of thumb is CDDs end up in nicer developments, but why exactly? how do I know that the developer puts that money into creating a nicer development and not just offsetting?
Like in the case of Weststone, the biggest benefit is the fact that we're going to be able to build 15th Avenue. I think the last number I counted was just under 5,000 linear feet of road. And that will be a profound benefit to the city. And so the cost of that does get distributed across the development overall through the bonds.
Okay.
But why it gets produced, it just, because there's additional money there to do the work, basically.
Okay, so they're not asking for a vote, but if any commissioner heard something tonight that clicked in their brain and made them think one way or the other, we could perhaps save another meeting. But if everybody wants more time to review the tape on what was said here today, go ahead, Commissioner Clark.
So, Mr. Mayor, I know we went through this the last time. All of us, we got a brief from Wes and this group right here. I would encourage anybody that ain't clear on any of this is to go read, because there's plenty of information out there about some of the CDDs, what I just asked 3M, Mr. Daniels, about amenities. They're going to take more money, they're going to build the infrastructure, and as long as they have more money, they get a better product for amenities. Pools, garden areas, green space, bike trails, all that usually falls within the parameters of they don't have to spend $30 million on the roads, so they got a little bit more money to finish up the better stuff for us. So me personally, what I've read, what I've seen, and I had a conversation this week, I'm personally for it. So we can go down the road and re-vote next week or whatever you want to do. I'm just saying, you need to go read on this.
Well, and I want to be clear to the applicants, because we know you spent a lot of time and money to get here. And I think there's just been a miscommunication between our staff and the dais. So I think the majority of our dais thought that this conversation was kind of left a year or so ago. I know that our staff has been sitting down and working a lot of these details out. So these guys are kind of playing catch up now, right? We had a presentation a year, 12 months, 18 months ago. And so it's just been, so to Commissioner Clark's point about going and reading, these guys do that all the time, but they needed a little bit of advance notice. So the first time this came back up, it came back up for a vote. It wasn't hey, we've had more information about debt. We've got those answers that the Concerns Commission had a little while ago. We've got more information. Can we start presenting and have this conversation again? It didn't come that way. It came as, all right, we got one for you guys to vote on tonight. And so we're just kind of scrambling, trying to remember that conversation, trying to catch up. I don't think that, it seems like everybody that knows about CDDs is very comfortable with them. And that makes me feel a lot better, because my memory of the first time around, there were some vague answers when it came to what if they go bankrupt, who gets the debt, who gets those kind of things. And that's when the board up here kind of pushed back a little bit. So there was a lot of interest until we got to some of those kinds of things. There was always the questions about layers of government and those kinds of concerns. So this is not anything on the applicants. We're just playing a little bit of catch up here, because we just didn't communicate very well about where we were at in this conversation, and that means that the commission just hasn't had a lot of time. Commissioner Farnsworth wasn't here at the last meeting. He was sick. So table it till the next meeting. You want a little more time?
Yeah, we better wait.
Okay.
Kind of iffy.
All right. How are we feeling? Do we want to ask staff to present again? Or are we starting to feel like we've grilled poor Wes here enough that we're getting a CDD, PhD, ASAP? Or do we want the presentation? Do you want the presentation, Commissioner Farnsworth?
I don't know that I necessarily need a presentation. I just need some clarification on some
Okay.
issues.
And I think this is a great topic to have one-on-one conversations with folks about, because even tonight, I thought the whole point of the CDD was to kind of pass off the whole thing forever and anon, and hey, you guys take it over, and that's a whole neighborhood that we don't have to worry about speed tables, we don't have to worry about sidewalk tracking, and maybe that's not quite what we're talking about. So I'm gonna have some of those same conversations, and I guess to everybody in the room, I'm still on my very first question was, how is this commission supposed to know the difference between a good CDD and a bad CDD? And some of them don't pass, but how do we judge this? What's the criteria? I know that my growth in evaluating neighborhoods is night and day compared to what it was when I first started this. And I thought I came into it with a little bit of knowledge. And now I ask all kinds of questions that I would have never asked 10 years ago, right? And so I don't know if a CDD is the same way, and there's a whole lot of questions these guys should be asking. The interlocal kind of threw me a little bit at the first, because that's a pretty big change between first and second reading. Is that a good idea? Is that a bad idea? So I think that's where I'm still kind of with, seems like the people that are comfortable are real comfortable, but I still feel like Commissioner Farnsworth, like there's some good questions and some coaching and some training to have here. So with that being said, do I need a motion to table this? Yes, because we read the internet. So do I have a motion to table to the next meeting?
We don't have a motion on the floor to table.
That's what I'm asking for. Do I have a motion to table? Yeah.
No, you have to have a motion for this parliamentary. You need a motion for this.
And then someone else overrides that motion?
No, the tabling is secondary to.
We've always just tabled it if we don't want to, but he was the king of parliamentary procedure rules. So do you want to make, I hesitant to make a motion, because if that motion fails, then.
And you can just do nothing.
Yeah.
Can we continue the item?
Do I have a motion to continue the item to the next? All right. I have a motion from Commissioner Clark.
Before we vote, can we make that time and date certain, November 12th, just because it's a public hearing item? No earlier than 7 p.m.
Okay. With that caveat, Commissioner Clark? Okay, I have a motion for continuance.
Oh, continue.
Yeah. Who was my second here?
Martin.
And Commissioner Martin seconded the motion to continue to a date certain, November 12th meeting. Okay,
I would love to get this information.
I know, but I gotta ask these guys first one question, then we'll go there. Any comments, questions, motion on the floor to the dais? Public comments, questions, motion on the floor.
No,
He wants.
I mean, for the record, I'm on board with it. I just have a couple questions. So.
Do you want them now, or do you like one?
No. I ask some questions.
Can you leave your card with Mike?
Outside of the commission.
Yeah.
Leave your card with Mike.
Leave your card.
As far as the time and date certain, are you going to specify that?
November 12th,
Okay.
7 p.m.
Thank you. I just want to
Yeah.
make sure that was.
Yeah. Okay, any other comments, question? You got all your notes ready, baby? You ready for the next one? Yeah. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
we are going to reach out to the city commission tomorrow with opportunities to schedule one-on-one meetings.
Okay.
To hear questions, to respond to them the best we can, and if we can line up expertise to make one of the presentations. I think we've had two different outside consultants that have provided those presentations, but we'll see if we can't line up someone that has a much deeper understanding than your team. And as well, probably more experience, less than understanding. I think our team understands it pretty well, but has experience that can answer, well, what about this and what about that, and can say, yeah, we did something similar, this and that, and this is how they work. We'll try to schedule some one-on-ones, probably, well, there's only 2 weeks between these meetings, so we'll try to get them scheduled next week if we can.
All right. Good. Okay, we'll move on to item 12. Mr. Attorney, would you please read on first reading ordinance 2024-38/LDR 24-15 into the record. This applicant wants to make the application presentation, but then is also asking not to move forward.
Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, establishing the Rants Community Development District pursuant to Chapter 190 of the Florida statutes, providing for the district's external boundaries, providing for functions and powers of the district, providing for the initial board of supervisors of the district, addressing correction of scrivener's errors, providing for severability, providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2024-38 upon its reading by title only, or you may continue this as well.
Thank you, sir. John Paul, you want to start us off?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John Paul Perez with the Community Development Department. The request before you tonight is to establish the Community Development District for the ranch. The ranch being the 4,500 dwelling unit, 700,000 square foot PD that was approved last year, or early this year. I'll be doing a staff presentation, starting with our motion, and then getting into a summary or overview of the request. And then the applicant is here with their counsel for the CDD to also provide information as well as answer any questions. So after reviewing the ordinance and the request, we are recommending a motion to approve. Very similar to the caveat I provided the commission last time, just because we're providing a recommendation for approval does not necessarily mean that it is the highest and best use of land, but it does comply with the land development regulations, the comprehensive plan, and any other related action of the board. If approved tonight on first reading, second reading is established for November 12th. These items do have pretty strict and stringent advertisement requirements, so there's 4 consecutive advertisements that need to be run between the initiation of the advertisement and the second reading. And so that's ongoing as we're going through the first reading. Same thing happened for the West Town. That's typical practice for the attorneys. So the request tonight, NC Ranch Number 1 LLC is the current landowner. This is the northeast quadrant. I'll have a more blown out picture of where this is located, but this is not the entire CDD. This is just phase 1, a portion of 2, and a very small portion of 3 of the overall PD. Agent for the developer, Jennifer Kalinsky Esquire with Kalinsky Van Wyck PLLC. The owner is Trip Norfleet, essentially named as managing member of the LLC. The area is approximately 255 acres, and in this image you can see a light street pattern appearing there. I'll go into that into a little bit more detail. That's part of their wastewater and stormwater plans. They have some initial street layouts. We don't usually get to see those until construction plans typically. So here is the project development area, and in orange or gold, I'm not sure which color you want to, mustard, is the CDD area. And here is the CDD area, again, in that orangish color laid against the phasing plan. And I've drawn some dashed yellow lines showing the different phases it affects, which, as I disclosed, is phase 1 and a portion of phase 2 and a very small portion of phase 3, all of them happening to be residential in nature. So here are the different phases laid out in a different graphic, so you can see the progression, and then here's the street laid out over the master plan, so you can see the alignment of what would be happening in the CDD as part of the what's being approved tonight. And that's the southwest corner of 46 and 2741 you're seeing there. All right, a little bit closer here so you can get a better image and some of the details. And so looking at phase 1 and 2 from the development order, there were 300 single-family residential units approved in phase 1, along with 125 detached senior adult housing. And none of the areas that encompass the CDD include non-residential uses, so we'll ignore those in this list. Phase 2, 350 single-family residences, 250 multifamily are possible, but there's if we go back to this image here, there's in the pink area that's south of the CDD is the mixed-use area, and the assumption is most of the multifamily residential will be probably part of this mixed-use area. and not standalone. But that will be to come. Yeah, that level of detail is not available yet. And 125 assisted living facility beds would also be a possibility. The total estimated budget for this portion of this CDD is $47,707,000. And amenities is always a big question. So here they have budgeted $6 million for amenities. So that's a significant portion of this budget is being dedicated to amenities. And the initial board members will be Trip Norfleet, Christiana Norfleet, Zeke Norfleet, Dylan Sykes, and Ellen Tyner, sorry, let's pronounce that. The city reviewing agencies looked at it and had no objection. It was also reviewed by Scott Steady, independent counsel on behalf of the city, paid for by Trip Norfleet. Thank you, sir. And they also found it consistent with 190 and had no immediate concerns about the request. It was transmitted to Alachua County Growth Management Department. They did not come back with an objection to the request. It was also emailed to the property appraiser and the supervisor of elections for notice. The district as it relates to the PD master plan. So as we talked about all the possibilities for development, again, this level of detail is not available yet, but a possibility of 650 single-family residential units, 250 multifamily units, 125 detached senior single-family residential units, 125 assisted living facility beds. The cost estimate totaling about $47 million. Now it's an estimate, so that number can fluctuate. It can go up or down. We know the initial 5 board members, and we know that there's been no objections to the request from internal and external agencies and reviewers. So similar to the Westone, we've communicated with the consultant attorney for the applicant, and they've have agreed to do an ILA. They did say that it's not common for them to do an ILA to Mark Clark's comments. So it is offered as a method of clarifying process if the board would like to have it. Staff has operated with other agencies without ILAs and has always acted in good faith and upheld its end of obligations, we believe anyway. And yeah, so they did not object to ILA. Same requirements and just acknowledgement of the wastewater capacity. I believe Jennifer Kalinsky's in the crowd today, and she had some great insights on kind of like the carrying capacity legally of a CDD and certain things they can act on and certain things they cannot act on. So I'd like her to come up and address this after I get to our findings in motion. And again, just reciting from 190 that the city does not have any obligation to assume the bonds taken out by the CDD. Staff does find it consistent with the comprehensive plan and the land development regulations. We have no reason to believe that any part of this petition represents a negative impact on public interest. And our recommendation is to approve on first reading, and if so, second reading will be November 12th, no earlier than 7 p.m. All right. So that completes my presentation.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions for John Paul before he brings up the applicant? All right. Come on down, ma'am. It's good to see you. It's been a little bit.
I promise no trouble tonight, Mr. Mayor. I promise. For the record, my name is Patrice Boyes. I'm the development attorney for the NC Ranch project, and I represent Trip Norfleet in a number of his business enterprises. We thought tonight we'd give you some information that makes this thing, the CDD thing, more relatable to you, and then we'll bring up Jennifer at the end for more technical questions that you might have. But if you have some context and a little bit more understanding of how this thing operates on the ground and why you even need it or want it, we thought that might be helpful. Anyway, so we'll bring up Jerry Diedenbach, who's well known to you as a planner with CHW. CHW is the CDD engineer for Oakmont, which was the first CDD ever adopted in Alachua County. And CHW is also the CDD engineer for Finley Woods, which is the first CDD ever adopted in the city of Gainesville. So you're not alone in being on the vanguard. Others have had similar questions and concerns, and you should. You're looking out for the public interest, and if you have any questions or uncertainty, ask all of us. You know we're an open book. After Jerry's finished talking to you about his experience more on the inside of a CDD, Trip Norfleet will come up and talk to you about, practically speaking, why he needs a CDD. And it's real simple. You go to the bank and borrow money, or you set up a CDD and you float bonds. That's really what it amounts to. And I think maybe the no objection to an ILA, while technically correct, we might be rethinking that. We don't think it's necessary, and I'll let others this evening explain why. And then last but not least, Jennifer Kalinsky, who is an expert on CDD, all the intricacies of the law, and all the questions that the commissioners have had this evening on what can you do and not do. So that's the person you want to direct those to. Sound good?
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Jerry.
She said she wasn't bringing any trouble tonight, and then she calls me up here, right? So, yes, as you all know, I'm Jerry Diedenbach. I'm a professional land use planner. I've been practicing for 34 years, and it's hard to think that a quarter of a century ago, I was sitting on the floor deciding what I was going to do, and I started drawing Oakmont subdivision. For those of you who know that, specifically on the corner of Parker Road and Southwest 24th Avenue, it is effectively a section of land, 1 square mile less the neighborhood of Biltmore in the northeast corner that takes 80 acres out of it. When in 2005 and 6, the developer completed that project through a unanimous approval of the Alachua County Board of County Commissioners, they were going into what we called the recession in 06 and 07. And so I've heard a lot tonight, but let me try to really simplify this as I understand this and why this is a valuable mechanism. And I heard the term HOA on steroids. Once you get through land use and zoning, you have the ability to go and apply for development, right? And as we did several months ago here for Mr. Norfleet, we achieved a large-scale land use amendment and a rezoning that allowed him a certain number of homes, a certain number of square feet of commercial uses in here. There are 2 options. You can go to the bank and you can walk in the door and you can say, can I have $47 million? And they say, excuse us? What? When? How? Who? Where? And you're going to be faced with a long-term issue on how to get that much money to build a subdivision or a portion of a subdivision. So back in 2006 and 7, as we were tapering down in the economy, the Oakmont subdivision chose to pursue a CDD, or Community Development District, because it would allow a better community. It would allow that effective 1 square mile to have a self-imposed simple taxation upon itself that could be used to capture a bond and then go in and build a $7 million clubhouse right off the bat. Go in and build roads, sidewalks, utilities. Take those things that have a long-term life cycle in excess of 50 years, get them done, deed them back over to Alachua County, but continue to collect that revenue and ensure that the quality of that community was there. And that's a better option.
Can I pause you there, Jerry? Because
yes, sir.
What you're saying makes a lot of sense to me, and it makes it's starting to click in my head, right? So right now, we approve a development. It's got all the amenities that Commissioner Maison was looking at when we approved the ranch. But a lot of those amenities don't come in until you're X percentage through, because you got to pay off money, you got to do these things. In a CDD, is it written into the CDD that the amenities come right off the bat? Is that part of the negotiated? That's the question.
And because you're always eating the, what do I call those, read my mind beans, yes. Because clearly what you can do, you can go to the bank here on the left-hand column that I'm showing, and you can go get a loan to build things, and I'm not sure that the bank is going to amenitize you as well. They may give you the money to get the roads and the sidewalks in so you can sell the lots and start paying them back, but the CDD gives you a broader vision. And so roads, utilities, infrastructure, recreation, and amenities. So you can get the whole package up and running in a better fashion with a long-term guarantee, with an organization that is made of reputable people that you have allowed to become part of that, Mr. Norfleet, Mrs. Norfleet, their children, and others. It is abiding by the Sunshine Law of the state of Florida so that you can see that their accounting, collection, distribution, and maintenance is occurring. On the other side, if there wasn't a CDD and somebody failed to keep up their subdivision, then your only recourse is really code enforcement violations and monitoring through the city. You might shut them down, but that would go the path that you don't want to go. So fast forward a little bit. Oakmont's up and running. We haven't got to 999 homes, but it is a very well-maintained development. It looks pristine in there. We annexed some property into the city of Gainesville, known as Finley Woods. Property that was sitting on Dogleg Road, 62nd, going between Archer Road and Williston Road. The developer there chose to pursue the CDD. Initially, the first portion of the subdivision, about 54 lots, was under a bank loan, but they were not able to deliver all of the quality of life elements early enough into the project. So then in subsequent phases, we decided, okay, we started the subdivision in Alachua County. We annexed it into the city because we wanted to have city fire protection, city police, first responders, and the fact that most of the properties are served by Gainesville Regional Utilities for water, sewer, and so forth. We opted for a CDD there because it would allow the developer to accelerate the quality of the development earlier on into the process. And it would put control initially with the developer to ensure that his vision, or her vision, and in the case of the Williams family, that their vision for quality of life would be established from the get-go. And then that there was a long-term mechanism. One of those CDDs that we haven't done in our portfolio is Celebration Point. That's a CDD too. That one hasn't gone quite as well, and I'll give you a little bit of a side on that one. It's a commercial mixed-use community, harder to collect. They didn't start from the get-go, and so they're in a little bit different of a pickle. But when you have a clear vision, as we've talked about numerous times from this podium to you all, you know, Mr. Norfleet has had this vision for as long as I've known him, which is going on a quarter century now. Coming forward and wanting to do this, this is the mechanism that allows him to do it with the least amount of risk to the commission, the least amount of risk to himself, and the best in turn for the residents of his community and the city of Newberry as a whole, because the burden of upkeeping that property will not fall backwards into the general revenue tax ad valorem, because he is creating a funding mechanism and a quasi-government entity to govern and ensure the long-term maintenance of that development. It's as simple as that.
Any questions for Jerry, for Commissioner Farnsworth?
Jerry, how come every subdivision, every developer is not pursuing a CDD?
Good question. Good question. So the question for those who didn't hear is, why doesn't everybody do it? Size. You got to hit a certain economy of scale to do it. The small scale subdivision person who's do a couple hundred lots and they're done. It doesn't make sense to go through that lift of establishing a quasi-government unit to effectively govern over that property. Reputation, too. Not everyone can go into the bond market and get a bond on their past performance. So you've got that aspect of it in there. The legality of creating the district is another consideration. Most communities, and I can think of dozens of subdivisions that just aren't big enough to where it makes sense, and the cost isn't so great, and their desire to push amenities into the subdivision is, we're going to build a clubhouse and a pool. That's it, we're done. The difference here in NC Ranch, you are talking about a phased project over decades of time and continued investment and operation of it. So the simpler, small subdivisions doesn't make sense. It's more overhead to go out and create a CDD when you don't have a vision, when you're kind of a turn and burn sort of. We're doing 100 lots, we're doing 200 lots, then we're done. We're going to find another piece of land, build another little subdivision there. It doesn't make sense to do a CDD there because you're not having that long-term relationship with the quality of the product.
That actually was a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question, yeah.
Jerry, what other good questions are we not asking? You've done these a couple times. What are we missing here? Like, how, if you were sitting on this side of the dais, what would you want to know? What's the central question about a CDD? To know this is a good one, that's a bad one.
Well, having the knowledge of the intricacies of the land use and zoning are an important question. But you answered all that very thoroughly, and we created a very specific set of policies in the comprehensive plan, okay, that are site-specific to the overall NC Ranch property as a whole. We have a developer's agreement that talks about the timed staging of when things come on so that there's a balance of residential, some commercial, residential, commercial. So you know those factors. If you didn't know those factors of timing, phasing, and who was behind delivery of the product, that would be where I would be jittery about a decision. But in this case, you know the individuals involved, you adopted the plan, you put specific policies into the comprehensive plan, and you have a developer's agreement with that individual to uphold that entitlement that you have granted to them. So you really have all the horses lashed together. Now it's time to put the hay out there and say, run and do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other?
What an analogy.
I tell you.
Well, you built it from the dais. You defined the controlling mechanisms. Now it's time to feed it and let it roll.
I love
Yeah.
it.
All right.
All right, thank you. John Paul, you want to respond? You want to put the carriage behind the horses? Because I thought that's where the metaphor was going.
I was thinking we just go right on top of the horses
Okay.
with the carriage.
Yeah.
I just wanted to offer an observation from reading about CDDs and the failed CDDs in the state of Florida. Most of them were related to the housing crisis or developers overpromising radically unreasonable amenities. And it ended up being too good to be true, and that's exactly what happened for those CDDs, was that there was just a overpromise and under delivery of amenities where it just ended up eating up the developer's budget. And I think the comfort here is that we know both of the developers. Not only have they worked here before, they have projects ongoing and future projects with the city, so there's that level of at least established relationship between the city and the developer. It's not an unknown. And I don't know, soft landing maybe? I don't know. Anyway, that's my only observation about
All right.
failed CDDs from reading.
Who's up next?
Mr. Berkeley.
All right, come on down. As you make your way down, say congratulations on another successful rodeo. Lions Club was out there in force. The customers were out there in force. I don't know how many people I heard. They must have come from Gainesville. They came out and said, "This is what the country air smells like."
Hey, you missed his son. His son was in it.
I was working in the parking lot, so I did. You got to go inside, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I was going to say up here. I wanted to thank the city. They put the flag, the big flag up
Awesome.
and the poles.
Yep.
To me, that's the best
I
part.
love
of
that
it.
part,
And
yeah.
then, and like I said, Jordan, wanted to thank him and the student government doing all the parking. Man, they did a great job, man. It looked like pros out there
Yeah.
doing that. And then, of course, we wanted to thank the Lions Club. I think it was the best one we had yet. You know, it was kind of cool because we had the soft opening on our Tortillas Tex-Mex restaurant from 4 to 6 Friday and Saturday night, and you know, it was kind of cool. My sister came in town from Pensacola, and she went to that, and so we went to this soft opening, and then I went up there to help with the rodeo, and then they went and stayed at Stonehouse for a little bit, and they come up to the rodeo, and then afterwards we went back to Stonehouse, and you know, it was kind of cool to see that we wanted to do the town square, our whole guys, so that was something to do with Newberry. You know, you don't have to go to Gainesville for everything. And it was kind of cool to see that kind of
See it working.
come. Yeah. It was pretty neat, you know, to see the whole thing full and everything. But
I
like I said,
agree.
we had a great deal on the rodeo. It was the best one yet.
And the Tex-Mex was delicious too. I had that. It was good.
I'm not much on Mexican food, but they did have that good apple thing. Now that will do everything. But no, back to you guys' question on the CDD. You know, I think y'all had a lot of good questions and stuff. But me as a developer, why I'd want to do a CDD is so typically, like on the subdivision we're doing right now, the town square, we'll usually do it by phases. I think we've got 7 phases in there. So each phase has been anywhere from 50 to 70 lots. And this cost me about $40,000 per lot to put the roads, the sewer, the electrical, and all that in there. So typically, on 70 lots, I might go and borrow $2.8 million. And usually that's a variable rate. It's a 3-year loan, has to be paid back pretty quick. They got obligations on it, so we'll do it in phases, and we'll borrow that money. What the CDD actually let us do, we'll be able to borrow the money, and then maybe 20,000 of that per lot, the homeowner, as they buy the home, they'll take over that, and that'll cost them about $1,200 a year to pay. Now, once they pay that all off over 30 years, it's gone. They could prepay it when they bought the house, or even the developer could prepay it. There will be a maintenance fee that'll continue. You know what I mean? And that maintenance fee will be to help keep the subdivision looking good. But now, the bond is $1,200. It's collected with the tax, but the house taxes are the same as they would be in Countryware or anywhere else. You all's alimony taxes will be the same. So when you do take over the streets, the city's still getting the same taxes to take care of that. You know what I mean? So it's not like they're getting any less taxes from the thing. So me as a developer, how am I going to get Mark, a homeowner, to buy that house that he knows that his taxes are $1,200 more per year? You know what I mean? You can buy house A over here in a subdivision doesn't have a CDD, say his taxes are going to be $5,000 a year. Well, Mark's going to buy mine, same house, going to be $5,000 a year, plus he's going to pay $1,200. Well, on the scam of economics, I've got to offer a nicer subdivision. And how I'm going to do that is, right off the bat, we want to do a 25-acre amenity thing right up front. And the best thing about this, back when I was saying I was borrowing the money from the bank, this with a bond, I've got a fixed 30-year note. So it gives us a lot more time to pay it back, even my side of the bond. And so I can spend the money on the amenity package. Like you said, we did a $6 or $7 million amenity package, on pickleball, on a walk-in beachfront pool. We want to do a lime rock pit and kind of have a special amphitheater on it, and just a lot of amenities of what we want to do. And I think as a developer, as someone selling the houses, I've got to offer them more. You know what I mean? Because they're going to pay more per year, and everybody hates paying taxes. And this is a tax that they'll have to pay. So I've got to offer more, and I've got to compete with the subdivision area that's not going to offer more. But I think, even the town square up there, we've kind of showed, I probably spent more on those buildings than I probably should have. But I was kind of watching the villages down there, how they did their town squares. And, we'd go around it, and I'd say, man, that's how my wife would say, well, people have paid for that. You know what I mean? They want to be there where it's nice. You know what I mean? And that's where we went. So we try to go over in the board, and when we do this new subdivision, we want to go even more. And like I said, we're from here. We want it to look good. But that's the economics of why I would want to do the bond. It gives me a longer time. I get a fixed rate. It's not a variable rate. And I can get it back. The homeowners will help pay for some of the infrastructure, some of the roads and stuff. But like you said, they're going to get the amenities and all this stuff to make it worthwhile. And we're kind of basing some of our stuff off what they did in the villages. And we're not going to be near as big as the village or nothing else, but just the look of the subdivision, it's almost like Disney World. I mean, it's so manicured up that it's unreal. You know what I mean? And like I said, at the end of the day, when we sell to the homeowner gets a disclosure that says that this is what you're getting, this is what you're paying for. So it's not like hiking it up on them. Like if they move to Newberry and all of a sudden y'all raised your millage rate, I know you're not going to, double, well, that homeowner won't have a chance. This CDD rate is fixed. If it's $1,200, it's $1,200 for the next 30 years, and that's it. You know what I mean? Or they could pay it off quicker, and it would be less. Like I said, I think the maintenance will help keep it nice. I think the higher end looking subdivision, that doesn't mean expensive. Like I said, we're going to have the different products that we talked about when we were getting the approval to start with, anywhere from some tiny homes to some cottages, some retirement cottages, and hopefully we'll have the bigger houses, and we've got some estate lots that, I envision seeing some $1.5 million homes. You know what I mean? Now, whether that happens or not, but I think it will. And then, yeah, that's kind of what I was planning on there, Monty, on there. And then, like you said, I think Monty, one of his questions, what were some of the benefits for the Newberry residents? Probably not much benefits for the Newberry residents, but it's almost like at Town Square. If you don't live in the Town Square, in the subdivision part back there, they're paying HOA dues. You probably don't get a benefit. But the commercial part, I think the residents get a benefit of the commercial part. And I think the CDD will help us do better commercial areas. I think one of the things is, why would the city want to take over the roads? Well, the city still is getting the water fees, the sewer fees, and it's still getting the same taxes that does all the other subdivisions. So, they'll have the money coming in. The CDD's on top of that for the residents. And does the CDD go away? Well, the CDD, the 30-year bond that the homeowner's doing, or me, the developer's doing, it can be prepaid right away. The developer can pay it off, or the homeowner can pay it off, or it can exist for the 30 years. The 30 years, it'll go away, the bond. But the maintenance bond won't. It'll stay with the CDD. And basically, the CDD is just a taxing district is all it is. It's just to be able to do that, financing.
And Trent, I'll interrupt
No,
you.
go ahead.
That maintenance part of the CDD, that goes to the amenities,
That goes
not to the sidewalks and the roads.
Well, no, it goes to the amenities, and Jennifer can correct me if I'm wrong, but it also can go some of the landscaping, and that's the biggest thing it'll go to.
I count that as kind of an amenity.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
I
But the
want to look at nice
landscaping
and I'll go
on
in.
the main roads, the big roundabouts that are all fancied up, a lot of it. I think, I see sometimes they'll do some extra sidewalks and extra trails. It can go into it because, just like Countryway Town Square, all the taxes that are paid there, those taxes go to the older part of town, typically to build the old roads, which they should. This one here, it'll be the same thing. Their normal tax will be paid, but that maintenance bond will actually be used in the subdivision. It has to be used in the subdivision, but that doesn't impede on the tax that the city gets. You know what I mean?
So I buy a house in the CDD, I paid for 10 years, and then I sell it to Tim. Tim gets to pay the $1,200 that you bonded for me 10 years ago?
Yeah, so when that lot's bonded, the day it's bonded, so it's just
Locked in at that price?
Yeah, and so it's $1,200. And say I don't sell it for 3 years. Well, I got to pay the $1,200 for 3 years. You get it for 10 years. You pay it for 10 years. And when you sell it to Tim, if I didn't prepay the bond or you didn't prepay the bond, Tim has got the same $1,200 because it's a fixed cost. And so it goes the remainder of the 30. What would that be? Another
whatever,
17 years or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So he's got it. But now a lot of times, maybe you bought the house from me. You had a lot of cash. I know you more or less just loaded up there. And, but you might have prepaid that bond. And so when you go to sell the house, Tim wants to live in this neighborhood. Well, you'll advertise your house for sale, prepaid bond. So, that should generate, when you're selling against Mark's house that didn't prepay his bond, you should get a little more for your house. But, so it's a very simple formula. You know what I mean? So once that bond is issued, so just say I borrowed $10 and I had 10 lots. They break it up. Each lot pays $1. You know what I mean? It's that simple. You know what I mean? So it's and then when the CDD is, it's like y'all said, it's basically a big homeowner association. It doesn't impede on any of y'all's deal. Y'all are over it, just like you're over every other subdivision in Newberry. So there doesn't impede on there. And that's basically about it. Y'all got any questions? And like you said, I've studied it. I've studied it probably 20 years with the villages, watching what we did. I thought about doing it on the Countryway Town Square, and I decided not to. But one of the reasons I didn't do it, when you issue a bond, it costs you so much to issue the bond. It costs you so much for the lawyers. It costs you so much to get the bond, and basically it about cost you $500,000. And it doesn't matter if you get a $2 million bond or $20 million, that cost is set. And then because it is part of the sunshine law, you have to have meetings year-round, so you have a cost for that. So to your question, why wouldn't every subdivision have one? It's just a quantity of scale. You know, your staff costs you so much money. Our staff to have those meetings would cost, say, $10 a meeting. And if you only had one house paying on it, it'd be pretty hard. But if you have 100 paying on it, it's pretty cheap. You know what I mean? So that's why. So it doesn't matter how big the bond is. And I know I'm not saying this right, Jennifer, but the assertion or acquisition fees are the same.
Sunk costs.
And so, yeah, so your fixed costs are the same.
Mayor.
Commissioner
So when the bond is paid for, 30 years done, everything's done, and the maintenance fee comes in, does the maintenance fee go down a little bit, or does the maintenance fee stay the same as the bond cost to continue?
Right?
Well, the bond savings, just say for instance, $1,200 a year for 30 years.
Right.
Then the maintenance fee is maybe an extra $200 to $600. That fee stays, and that'll be. And I don't know. Now, Jennifer, you might can help me. Can they decide to raise that maintenance fee, or is it a fixed?
I'm saying that you're paying $100 a month, which is $1,200 a year. When the bond's paid for, it'll be $600 a year for the maintenance fee. So it does go down.
Oh, yeah, the bond goes away.
The bond goes away, the cost comes down,
Yeah,
but you just still pay a fee related to the taking care of the property.
And the CDD board has the ability to say, yeah, we like the level of maintenance that we got, we're willing to pay $600 a year, or no, we want to scale down to $500, or we want to scale up because we want a new.
I don't know on the maintenance deal, is it set for the life of that, or how is it?
No, so we were talking about two different kinds of assessments. There's the.
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry. So Jennifer Klinsky with Klinsky Van Wyk. There's that bond assessment, that's that 30-year bond. It's set at a fixed rate. Right now, the interest rates, we priced to bond issuances this week, they're about 5.1 to 5.3% for the life of the bond. At 10 years, you could refinance, so if miraculously our interest rates come back down to 3%, there is an opportunity to refinance to a lower rate, usually at a 10-year time period. There's the second type of assessment, which is what Tripp was talking about, the maintenance assessment, and that could be a little variable. So, you want to replace all your landscaping 20 years down the road. You may have a cost associated with the landscaping. The bond is for capital improvements. It's for delivering the roadway, the asphalt. It's for delivering the install of the landscape. The maintenance is for maintaining the landscape and making it pretty and providing events at the amenity center and making sure that the pool gets cleaned. So those stay pretty static. You're not going to have a whole lot of variation unless something catastrophic happens. And that's one of the big benefits of a CDD. We're reading a lot about, thank goodness we don't practice in the HOA context, but all of the condo and HOA laws with this required reserve. And people are we're going to have condo bankruptcies ad nauseum in Florida if the legislature can't fix this year. The big benefit of this district is if you've got something catastrophic that happens, it can go access the tax-exempt bond market. So I have a stormwater pond that fails, or I've got districts that I've had for my entire career that are now have amenities that are 30 years old and they want to refurbish the amenity. They don't have to do a special assessment over 1 year and price people out and have people lose their homes. They can go access a 5% interest rate, issue a bond over 30 years. Homeowners pay over a 30-year time period. If, like you were saying, if I own the home for 5 years, I'm only paying my share for the 5 years I live there. I'm not having to pay a 1-year special assessment, and then the person that buys my home next year gets the benefit of what I just paid. So it's a great model for I've got districts that were established in the 80s and 90s, and they've issued bonds on themselves through residents because they want more amenities. Pickleball. I think I have 20 districts that are doing pickleball right now, and thank goodness they can get a 30-year note, or they can go to a bank, and unlike an HOA, they can get a bank loan, a private bank loan, and they can do a 5 or a 10-year or 15-year note at a very aggressive rate because that bank knows that they get to use the county tax roll to collect their assessments, and they have a 100% collection rate. Tell me any HOA in the state of Florida that has a 100% collection rate. I don't have a single district that doesn't have a 100% collection rate.
Too, Jennifer, tell them, to start off with, on the board, it'd be me and my kids and us, the guys that work for us, who do it. But that only lasts for a certain amount of time, and then we slowly turn that over and give them the time schedule that turns over on.
Yeah, and that's actually faster than HOA too. So statutorily, at 6 years after establishment, so if you were to establish in 2024, in 2030, 2 of the 5 seats turn over to general election, resident electors. And the district has to notify the supervisor of elections office in Alachua County. We've got 2 seats up. And they actually go on the ballot right along with governor and president. If you live in that community, you're voting for your CDD folks. And then at 8 years, the next two seats, and then at 10 years, all seats transition. So it does turn over. Everything is in the public, just like your meetings. Minutes are transcribed. Websites have to be kept statutorily. Usually they're also recorded. Everything is a public record, so all the emails and correspondence all becomes public record. And we have a number of communities that we have very active resident participation. And to your point, I mean, it's a capitalist model, very much so. And if you look around the country at the states that have this type of model, they're almost all high-growth states. It's Texas, it's Florida, it's Colorado, it's Utah. And the reason for that in part is because the cost of capital is very high, like Tripp was saying. If you're going to go get a bank loan to deliver a master plan that you can be proud of, it's going to cost you a lot of money, and the house prices in those communities are very high. The benefit of a CDD is that you can play around with your debt, your assessment level, and the market's going to drive it. Tripp's not going to charge a homeowner $2,000 a year because it's not going to sell a house. So he's going to be able to pay down that debt or buy down that debt so that he can put in all those high amenities at a low cost of capital and still be able to make a project work. So if you look at RCLCO's top 50 communities in the state of Florida, if you look at the top 100, 98 of them are special districts. 98 of them. Babcock, Lakewood Ranch, Vieira, all the villages, because it's really the way that master plans, highly amenitized master plans work. The question about what's a good CDD and a bad CDD, from my perspective, a lot of it does have to do with size. Whenever I've had a district, I haven't personally had one that hasn't been voted favorably on either, but usually you know ahead of time, because usually it's the underlying project that's the problem, because when you bless the CDD, you're not blessing the zoning, you're not blessing permitting, all that has to come back to you here before this board. Instead, what you're blessing is the way that you're going to deliver and maintain long-term infrastructure.
I really like the way you just put that. That helps me frame it a lot, right? So, yeah, okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yes, and there's the 6 statutory factors that the legislature has opined on, and I've done a lot of legislative work for community associations, the Association of Florida Community Developers, as well as on behalf of special district clients, and trying to explain to the legislature why do we want duplication of government. That's always an interesting conversation with a very conservative legislature year over year. And yet they're very big proponents of this model, because Florida, if you ask a number of state representatives and state senators, they will tell you the reason that Florida has the growth and has the economic engine that it has is largely because of this model. And we have states, Georgia's getting ready to pass something similar, Tennessee just passed something similar, because they see it's almost like a public-private partnership to be able to deliver, again, high-quality public infrastructure at a low economic rate, access the tax-exempt market. Districts can buy materials tax-exempt. That's a huge advantage to already a very high cost of construction. So it's a great model in that way. The other things I thought was worth sharing with you, I'd had a PowerPoint that kind of gave some of the key CDD advantages that you all were talking about tonight.
Did you like it?
Yeah, if you don't mind. I think it's at least a good presentation on some of the high level.
Yeah.
She doesn't have it as a closed network, so.
Oh, I thought you said if I'd sent it to you on Monday, it would be available.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Okay.
see the
Well,
email. Yeah.
Pop quiz?
Actually, it was
by
last
memory.
Thursday. No, it's fine. So just want to talk about some of the key CDD advantages. So one of the things that we've talked a lot about tonight was the higher quality project and the cost savings to the end user. Again, the tax exempt bond rates being lower, the costs are spread over time, and again, we represent a number of resident-controlled districts, old historical resident-controlled districts that are having roadway resurfacing. I have got a lot of districts that have 20-year stormwater systems that the ponds need to be rebuilt. And so they are issuing bonds, and they can issue $2 million bonds, again, at a 3 or 4% interest rate, because it's fully built out. It is so much cheaper, and it makes so much more sense for the residents to do that, and they're doing that on themselves, because otherwise they'd be doing a special assessment for 1 year. And the benefit to that end user who owns the home today, if I own the home today, I'm paying 100% of the benefit of that improvement, rather than spreading it over 30 years. And when, 5 years from now, that person can pay their portion of that stormwater. It's a 20-year improvement or 30-year improvement. On the superior maintenance entity portion too, so the difference between, when we talk about defaults, if you look at the most successful projects after the downturn in 2008, 2009, 2010, 100% of them are special districts. Why is that? When a district issues bonds, there are so many interested parties in the successful outcome of that project. An HOA, you've got a developer and you've got residents. And I know a lot of counties now in Florida require either MSBUs or CDDs for any project that's over 300 units. They require a CDD or an MSBU because they had so many problems in the downturn with, take my roads, take my landscape, nobody's here anymore. The developer's gone belly up, county, city, help me. We're desperate over here, things are falling apart. When you have a CDD, you've got bondholders and a trustee who have poured $10, $15, $20 million into a project, and there are requirements in the covenants between the district and the bondholders that the bondholders step into the shoes of the developer and they continue to make the project go. They're going to look for a replacement developer, they're going to do a workout on the bonds, they're going to make sure that project is successful because they have every incentive possible to try to get some of their money back. Even if it's 50 cents on the dollar, it's better than 0 cents on the dollar. So they have a stable revenue, stable turnover compared to HOAs. The other thing that was mentioned briefly, but I think is worth focusing on, is just the stable revenue source for both the debt and the O&M assessment, the operation and maintenance assessment. Because we're not sending bills, it's on the tax roll with property taxes. There's no ability for an end user to say, well, I want to pay my CDD debt, but not my county debt. You pay them all at the same time. And if you don't pay, there's a tax certificate sale. So the districts are almost always 100% whole. So the residents don't have to worry about, are we going to collect enough to pay our bills this year? Again, it's 100% collection, and if you don't collect, you sell a tax certificate at the county level and the district still gets its funds. I'd also note that there are longitudinal studies. FSU Collins Institute did studies on property values, the property value correlation to CDDs. Oh, okay, thanks. And they are, the property values associated with CDDs are infinitely higher than a regular project, again, because you have higher quality maintenance, higher quality amenities.
Do you want to advance to the slide
Yeah,
that you
if you
caught
don't
up
mind.
on in your memory?
If you can.
Is this it?
No.
You've got a clicker right there,
Oh, do I?
but it takes a PhD to learn how to work it. You got to turn it on
we go.
first, then it's left button, right button. It's very
Do a
confusing.
little dance?
Yeah.
All right, we talked about that one. So these, we talked about a lot of these. So the CDDs are the superior maintenance entity. I know Wes, when he was giving his presentation earlier, talked about the water management districts. I think I must write a water management district letter a week. They do request, to the extent possible, if you have a CDD, they want to see the district own the stormwater, the conservation areas, the wetland areas, because it is a long-term stable maintenance entity with professional staff. There's a district engineer, as you heard, there's district council, you've got interested parties, they're high maintenance obligations of the district. I know Wes talked a little bit about the sovereign immunity protection, which again is fantastic for residents. You have slip and falls or folks that look to sue entities all the time. So if that happens in a community development district, the cost of insurance is very low because there's this government risk fund and you have sovereign immunity caps. Talked about the transparency. There's a lot of public involvement in the outcome of the community, where in an HOA, a lot of those meetings are closed. So the transparency is certainly heightened in the case of a district. They're eligible for FEMA funding. This has been particularly relevant this year. We've had a number of districts start to apply for, especially debris cleanup in the Hillsborough County area. We were successful in a few $1 million of FEMA funding in Fort Myers during Ian as well. There is professional staff, so unlike an HOA, which is a little bit more Wild West to me, districts, because of they are a unit of government, they're not quasi-government, they do have bond counsel, district counsel, engineer. I've got districts that have ecologists when they have larger environmental issues that are on professional staff. Higher property values we talked about, and it's always important to us to explain too that you usually have far less complaints to the city for a CDD because they have a elected body that they can go and lodge their complaints to if they have an issue, and if they don't like it, we know about it, we hear about it for sure. So some of the differences between a CDD and an HOA, a CDD is like a super HOA. We did talk a little bit about how CDDs do not have restrictive covenant statutory authority. There is a statute that says under 190 they have it, but it's only if they were in existence at the time that statute was written. Coincidentally, only the villages have architectural control. So just again, some of the stuff we've talked about before, the infrastructure costs on a CDD, because really when you talk about why would you approve a CDD, the alternative is what you're saying is you're going to have an HOA. And so these are some of the contrast between a CDD and HOA and what a CDD brings to the table. You know, the tax roll collection, the default protection, you know, the money is in a bank trust estate. We do get asked that sometimes. When you issue bonds, well, can't the developer just do whatever they want with the money? Absolutely not. It's a very deleveraged model. The money that comes through the bond proceeds is in a accredited investment fund that can only be accessed through the trustee, and the trustee has to have affidavits from the district manager, that's kind of like the county attorney, the county administrator, the city manager, the district engineer, and the chairman of the board of supervisors, with backup to show where the money was spent with cut checks and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of checks and balances there. We talked about the turnover to residents, that it does happen at 6 years and 250 registered voters instead of the 90% build out, the accountability, and the long-term value. This is a question that comes up a lot, just the default protection. You know, what does it mean for the city? Statutorily, I'm sure if you all were paying any attention during Reedy Creek, there was a lot of conversation around whether the state could push down Reedy Creek, which is the Disney's district, down to Osceola County in the city of Kissimmee. And there was attempts to do that, but categorically, federally and state law, you cannot do that. It is illegal. So the debt of the district would never become the debt of the city. Again, money's held in a trust estate. It can only be used through the strict requisition process I was just talking about. In the event of a default, the money, again, is not held by the developer. It's held by the trustee for the benefit of the bondholders. So that's why I was saying you have all these interested parties in the successful outcome of the project. The defaults that we saw in the downturn are not going to happen anymore. And the reason for that is because the models become deleveraged. It used to be that if I had 1,000 units, I could go issue on my full 1,000 units, all of the infrastructure I would ever need, and it wasn't secured by anything. And now the market really wants to see some infrastructure in the ground, you know, to Tripp's point, delivering some amenities up front, some roadways up front, and then we may issue on a phase-by-phase basis. They're not going to let somebody get too far over their skis anymore. So the city retains all of your powers. The CDD has very limited authority under the statute. You know, the city's still going to keep its zoning and permitting authority. It doesn't confer approval of this, wouldn't confer any other zoning or entitlements. You know, if there wasn't a development order in place already or there wasn't zoning in place already, you're not saying, yes, you can build that many units. Still has to comply with all applicable laws. Reedy Creek, we had a lot of questions after that. That was a very special district. Has all kinds of other powers provided by the legislature, which is not the case here at all. And then, of course, no debt can become the debt of the city. There's no administrative cost to the city. It really is an independent special district. So it's not taking away any of your power or authority because you are never going to maintain the landscaping or maintain the amenities. It really is just providing that the owner of this property, through his own property rights, now has the opportunity to access the tax exempt model through this overlay district.
Can I pause you there for a second?
Yeah.
So the last time there was a conversation of the city would have to review the books, the city would have some financial oversight, auditing, those kinds of things. So I know that there's no administrative cost to the city, but if the city has to provide that kind of oversight, is the CDD paying for the city's time to provide that oversight?
The city has no, the only thing that gets transmitted to the city is the district's budget, and it is for an FYI. It's required by statute. I've never, in the history of my practice or any of my partners, seen a city say, oh, that's really interesting that you're doing that. Why are you doing that? It's really just so that you know what the CDD's budget is. The district is required by statute to have its own independent auditor, and it also reports, like a city or county, to the Auditor General and a joint legislative auditing committee. So if it fails to do an audit or have the independent audit done within the statutory timeframe by June 30th, it gets reported to the Auditor General. It has to go, I have had a couple districts that didn't have their audits done on time, had to go to the joint legislative audit committee and explain why and ask for forgiveness that it was just coming in late. But the city doesn't audit the district's books.
Okay. Thank you.
So some of the benefits to the city, again, we've talked about this, the stable financing source. I do think it presents less problems to the city from a resident perspective. Allows this public infrastructure to be delivered. No financial burden on the residents outside the CDD. The CDD can only assess property within its jurisdictional boundaries. It has no assessment power or authority outside of its jurisdictional boundaries. Assures the project's funded, again, because the bond proceeds are provided up front, and then we have this secured completion agreement for any bond proceeds that are short of the public improvements that are being delivered. There's an agreement between the district and the developer to provide that funding. Talked about the tax base and the stable maintenance entity. So some of the benefits to residents, again, we talked a lot about this, some of your earlier questions, but you know, the enhanced project, enhanced amenities, the tax exempt bond market, we talked about the refurbishment. I just had a district issue $45 million in debt to build a new amenity in St. Johns County on themselves. It's 5,000 units, but we are seeing more and more of that with these aging districts. The assessments are disclosed in marketing materials and sale contracts. I actually have a slide here that has all the listed disclosures that the residents get. It's very few and far between does a resident say, I didn't know what I was getting into. There is so much disclosure that happens. It would have to be somebody who is paying absolutely no attention and reading nothing. It had a terrible realtor that didn't provide any oversight too. The liability for assessments is limited to the individual unit. So we get that question frequently from residents. If my neighbor doesn't pay their assessment, are you now going to reallocate it to all of us? And again, that is illegal. You cannot do that. The assessment runs with that lot. So if that person doesn't pay, the only outcome is a tax certificate sale once it's on the tax roll. It can't be, there's no general obligation of the entire district to now make up that money. It's that particular lot owner pays their assessment or they don't. If they don't, there's default provisions about how that works out. Earlier resident involvement, we talked a lot about that. The transparency. So these are the things that get recorded in the public record or that go before residents buying in a CDD. So we have this 190.048 requires the specific disclosure in sales contracts. It's in bold, has to be in 14 font, caps. You're in a district. Here's your estimated maintenance assessment per year. There could be debt assessments and estimated what that's going to be. There's a mandatory public website that has to have all kinds of things on it. 2 years of audits, has to have the budgets, has to have the meeting minutes, has to have the agenda packages, just like a city or a county. All of the meetings and public hearings have to be advertised and posted. For assessment hearings, they get mailed notice to their homes. It's also in the newspaper. It's also on the website. There's also an annual meeting notice that gets published. Again, minutes of each meeting are kept and posted on the website. You can request historical meeting minutes. I've had records requests for 30 years of meeting minutes on occasion. The public procurement laws govern, so just like you all, when you have a project that exceeds the statutory threshold, we have to publicly bid that work. There's a recorded notice of establishment in the public records. There's a recorded disclosure of public finance. There's a recorded notice of special assessments. There's annual audits and a public depository report. So many of those are actually recorded on title.
Can I pause you there?
Yeah.
So what happens if the CDD board is acting up? Who oversees them? So they're not submitting their, what happens then?
Yeah, so there's several different safeguards in place. One is the state. So if you don't submit your audit, like I said, the Auditor General is going to come back on you. If you aren't submitting your meeting minutes or following the Sunshine Law, they're subject to Chapter 112 Code of Ethics, just like city or county is.
That's not us. That's the county, that's the state, it's the residents inside.
It's going to be residents, members of the public.
And they have to pursue it.
Yes.
Okay, so what if you've got a CDD board that's liable to sunshine laws? Is it a problem to have family on there? And
We have many districts at the beginning that have family members on board, and we as council caution strongly about talking about CDD specific components. So talk about the development all you want, talk about rodeo, talk about weather and football, just don't talk about the special district. And again, all of the Code of Ethics, Chapter 112 rules that apply to county or city commissioners apply to our CDD board members.
so a resident comes to this board and says, hey, they're passing this and they're talking about it. Now we say, hey, you, same thing, if you think something up here, talk to the state, submit it to the state.
Exactly.
You got to deal through the state.
That's right.
Push it off of us.
Yes. And Chapter 119, just your public records section, applies exactly to special districts. There's provisions if you don't turn over public records, how that gets litigated as well. Same process. And then these are the 6 statutory factors that are under 190 for consideration of the district. So these are the ones that we have pre-filed testimony we submitted, and we had a matrix of testimony that goes to the heart and soul of these establishment criteria. Any other?
That was, I feel a lot better now. No offense to Wes.
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Mason.
So, within the board, is it public record to the residents?
Yeah, to any member of the public. So I
really?
could come from Tallahassee and say, hey, I'd like to see, and we do, I'm sure you all had the joy of having all the ADA website lawsuits and, testing for public records. We get that with some frequency too.
You mentioned earlier where if your neighbor doesn't pay their fee, it doesn't affect, right? So does that get built up? Or if I decide to buy that lot, will I start?
Yeah, so there's 2 different scenarios, and this is pretty nuanced, but in scenario number 1, your assessment is on the tax roll. So it's just being collected. Every year the district certifies, just like anybody else, your taxes to the property appraiser to send out a tax bill. If that person doesn't pay their taxes, it happens the exact same with the CDD assessment as if they don't pay city taxes. It's going to go to a tax certificate sale. Likely those are going to sell. If they don't sell, there's going to be another tax certificate and another tax certificate, and that property is going to escheat to the county or the city depending on what's not paid. If a next person buys that lot, then again, if it's on the tax roll, they're going to be getting that disclosure that these are the taxes that are owed. The district provides estoppels at every closing. So 20 years from now, one of the houses in Tripp's community sells, they're going to call the district manager. They're the financial analyst for the district. And they're going to say how much money's owed. And they're going to tell them, well, they didn't pay these 2 years of assessments. So they're going to know right up front exactly what their assessment level is for their debt assessment, that long-term 30-year bond, their maintenance assessment for that year, and if there's any back assessments owed. So they can make an informed decision when they close on that house exactly what they would owe.
Done?
I'm good.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
Okay. So you can't have an HOA and a CDD at the same time?
No, you always have an HOA and a CDD at the same time because the CDDs do not have the right to govern covenants and restrictions on private property. So you almost always have an HOA just to do restrictive covenants. Almost always.
Is there an HOA fee also in addition to the?
Usually, and I don't know what you're planning on, usually in most of our communities, the district's doing almost everything, so the HOA fee may be $50 a year, just enough to cover making sure, people are mowing their grass and keeping their mailbox up.
The maintenance fee, is that in conjunction to the yearly fee, or is that take over after that fee is paid off after 30 years?
So in the beginning, the first few years of the district, if the district has issued bonds, long-term bonds, there will be a debt assessment that's, like Tripp was saying, it's going to be market-driven, but it'll be set at, let's just say, $1,000 a year for the improvements that are delivered to the property. These are hard assets. There will also be a component at some point, maybe year 2 or year 3, for maintenance of the improvements that are delivered. That part is usually really small at the beginning because there's nothing to maintain. So, until the amenity is put up, until the landscaping's in there, usually the developer is funding the maintenance the first couple years because otherwise they'd just be assessing themselves. But at some point, there's going to be an overlap. There may be $1,000 of that long-term debt assessment that's fixed, that fixed rate assessment. And then there's going to be a $300 a year operation and maintenance non-ad valorem assessment that's separate. That is determined annually by the board. In March, they start budget planning. In May, they're usually doing budget approval. All of these are public hearings. And that budget approval is based on actual expenditures, actual budgeted expenditures for the next fiscal year, based on what you think is going to be needing to be maintained for that next fiscal year. And then in August, they're usually adopting their budgets formally, and that's when they're certifying the assessment roll to the county for collection. But it's based, that assessment that I'm talking about now is considered annually. It has to be based on actual improvements that are going to be maintained for that next fiscal year. You can't just say, well, maybe we're going to build something. It has, because it's a non-ad valorem assessment, so it's all based on benefit. So you have to make benefit findings, and if you don't have the benefit there, you're going to get sued and you're going to lose.
Okay. At one point, you mentioned there was a board that decided to obtain a bond to maintain the roads. The roads had gotten bad, and they had gotten a bond to maintain them. Were those roads not deeded over to the city, or were they just not maintained by the city, and the CDD or the board decided to go ahead and obtain a bond to repair them themselves, or how did that work?
That one that I'm talking about specifically is a community that has TND areas, so it has a number of alleyways and not code. The roadways are not to code everywhere, so it's a big community. It's 5,000 units, but it was the St. Joe community, and about half of it is the roads were not built to county standards. So the county said we're not accepting roads that have alleyways and are not built to county standards. So those roads are about 20 years old, and they're taking out bonds to do basically a resurfacing of those roads.
Okay. And the last question I have is about the board itself. Now, I've known Tripp since he was in diapers, and his
Is this a question?
and his mom and dad and grandma and grandpa knew me since I was in diapers. So, but anyhow, it seems kind of odd that the board is made up of family members and employees for the first 10 years. Is that a normal thing to occur?
Yes, it's very, very normal. And it's, so for the first 6 years, it would be totally landowner controlled. And then at year 8, it's going to be a mix of residents and landowner control. And at year 10, it's going to be fully resident control.
Okay.
And the reason for that is so much of the early life of the district is doing the development. It's determining when should I issue bonds, for how much should I issue bonds, what's the market absorption going to be if I set my assessment rate at $1,000 versus $800. Do I want my amenity to be 25,000 square feet or 10,000 square feet? It's all of those decisions in the early years Then you start getting into what you were talking about before, that operation and maintenance assessment, and what do I want the level of service to be? And that usually is about the time it starts transitioning to resident control, and they start making the decisions about that level of service.
I mean,
Say something to that too, Monty. Like right now in the town square, we've got an HOA out there. The fees are $1,000 a year. And like I said, I'm on the board. Some of my people are on the board the same way. And we wanted control of that until we were 90% because we have to sign off on the houses and all. But like I said, when we had the homeowner association that managed it for us, they said, well, we got to go up after the first year. I said, we're not going up. They said, well, no, everybody goes. I said, I'm not going up. And one reason I didn't want to go up is I'm selling homes. So we, as a developer, we contribute to that. And then when it gets taken over by the homeowners, if they decide they want to go up, they can. And like I've encouraged all the homeowners, I said, be careful, don't get Barney Five out there that wants all this crap and he wants all y'all to pay for it. You know what I mean? It's kind of the same spot y'all are in. So, you know, as a developer, we've got a vested interest, not let that thing get up too high, you know, because at the end of the day, I'm trying to compete against Avalon or whoever else is out there. So I was just wondering.
And that's the standard, like Newberry Oaks stayed under that developer's control until the very last lot was sold. I mean,
it makes sense that the developer should have,
but on
they have more insight.
But on the CDD, it gets turned over quicker, so I mean, it doesn't matter if we get set up or not. But like you said, at the get-go, we're funding bonds and stuff like that, so we want to make sure we got the deal.
This CDD is for phase one. What happens when phase two kicks in? Is that you start a whole nother.
Well, I think the way we'll probably do is we'll have the CDD number 1, 2, 3, 4, and the whole idea is control, because if you did phase one and say, we turn that board over within 6 or 7 years, y'all got us on a 50-year development. Well, for phase two, and we wanted to bond the funds, and the homeowners on in phase one said, well, we're not funding any bond. You know what I mean? So we'd be.
We just take it over.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
You might have, I don't know, 5 different boards or whatever.
Right. But one thing that would be an advantage too, just say the first thing is turned over to homeowners, it's 15 years later, and say there is a road that wants to be paved, like a 30th Avenue or something. Well, the homeowners could get together and say, hey, we want to issue a bond on this to resurface this, and I think they could do that, couldn't they? And you know, they could assess that, you know what I mean? And they could do it themselves instead of counting on Alachua County or City of Newberry or whatever, you know what I mean? But you know, they'd have a little more control over that, you know, because just say, and I think at the end of the day, it'd keep your home hour, and you know, that's the whole idea with the homeowner association, just try to keep the home values up. And you know, it's just like I said, it's a fine line of being a yard Nazi, and right now, that's one reason we probably have a HOA. I don't think the CDD can mow the front yards, is that correct? Right. And so our HOA over there, we mow all the front yards, and I'm not mowing it for the guy that's got his pristine. I'm buying it for the guy that he thinks he wants it pretty, but he lets it grow up waist high. You know what I mean? So we're protecting that. I think over here we won't mow the yards, but we're going to have a full-time guy that goes around, and if they don't mow it, we'll mow it, and we'll charge them for it. You know what I mean? And that's part of the deal.
And right now, we offer the same thing. If a bunch of people in the neighborhood say we want, or on a road say we want to resurface, we have special taxing districts that we can do that. We've just never had anyone take advantage of it.
And that's, you know, the villages are villages. I think they just established number 17 or 18 for the same reason. I mean, residents do a great job on the maintenance, but they're not generally skilled in the development aspects, determining how to do a master plan.
Okay, so we've had a long conversation for something we're not going to vote on tonight. But I think that was the presentation that we had been wanting from the get-go. I appreciate that, and again, no offense to Wes, but now a lot of the questions and the ambiguity, I think, have been answered. So now it's just a question of sleeping on it and making an ultimate decision, unless anybody, again, has heard something now that they're ready to go tonight. The offer is on the table, just table it till the next one. Commissioner Farnsworth?
Or you could vote this evening if you're so inclined. We'd be fine with that, too.
Yeah, I mean, if we want, we'll have a second reading on it, so I'm okay with go ahead and approve the first reading.
And then when they come back, we can answer both on second reading? Okay. And you're comfortable with that?
We're voting on first reading tonight?
Just first reading tonight?
That's fine.
And you're going to give you gave the first applicant a yes on the first reading, withholding your right to change your mind between second reading, so you're comfortable with a first reading tonight?
For them, I won't be here on the 12th.
Okay. So do we have a recommended motion do we have a slide with a recommended motion? Anyone?
We do.
We do? John Paul?
Do you have a suggestion?
There we go. Okay, so I have a motion on first reading, and we read this in an hour ago?
We read this in originally, Mr. Mayor, so the appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2024-38 upon its first reading by title only.
Okay, first reading, do I need a roll call? Do I have a motion? I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, second from Commissioner Clark. Do you want a roll call, or are you good for first reading?
Roll call.
Okay. All those in favor say by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously on first reading. Thank you so much for the excellent presentation. We appreciate the education.
And I just want to say I appreciate it, and then any of you guys that want to get a hold of me personally or something, and it's not a question I can answer, we can call Jennifer or call Jerry or Pat, you know what I mean, and we'll get you the right answer if you got any questions on anything. And like I said, I sure appreciate it.
And you can buy him dinner at the Tex-Mex restaurant, because he likes Mexican so much. Jerry's back there. Oh, okay. All right, that's going to move us to comments, citizen comments. Anybody here? Citizen comments, want to talk about something that's been going on, happening in town? Yeah, citizen comment, come on down, sir. You waited all night long.
I know.
Don't miss out.
Yes, sir.
Last time I saw you, we were standing on the roof of the Publix.
Yes, sir. My name's Keith Keaton. I'm the superintendent for the Publix that y'all are getting. So, I'm here on twofold. We are just cruising along in Publix down there.
That's
We're doing
fantastic.
good. And I do want to let the city of Newberry and everybody know that it's been amazing working with you guys. I do come from a little town called Mount Plymouth. We got one traffic light, 2 gas stations, and a pizza joint, so I can relate. You got me beat. So, but we do not have a building department and we do not have a utilities department in my town. So I just need to let you all know that when we open a job and start a job, one of the things we talk about is budgets and things like that. And one of the major things we talk about is the municipality. And we'll say, if anybody in here has ever been a contractor, Metro Dade, Sunrise, Fort Lauderdale, Oakland Park, you don't want to do a job there. You don't. Which one?
You missed Alachua County.
Well, that's the next one. Okay, so when I was told that I was working in the city of Newberry, I go, okay, where the hell is Newberry? And so they told me it's next to Gainesville. And I went, uh-oh. I was the general superintendent for Butler Plaza when we put in Sam's and Walmart and all that. So I had the pleasure of working with Alachua County, GRU, in the city of Gainesville. And I went, uh-oh. So I said, well, you know what, we'll get up here and get it done. We had a groundbreaking here that was absolutely amazing. I have groundbroke Walmarts, 140-acre shopping centers, all that kind of stuff. You guys had 100 people at this groundbreaking. The best part was you had the mayor there, you had commissioners there, you had the head of your departments there, you had everybody there. And the biggest thing was we've been looking for Publix for 10 years. I said, well, I'm here to build it for you, so I'll take care of it. I got business cards from everybody. I've yet to call you because I've not had to. Because
fantastic.
I'm going to tell you, you guys, your utilities department, Jamie and Rance, unbelievable. Your building department, Scott and Nikki, unbelievable. This is the only time I can ever do a fast-paced construction, because you see how fast that building's going up. We do what's called fast-paced construction. And there's times where I might do work over Saturday and Sunday, and I need to have an inspection Monday morning to pour concrete, cover walls or whatever. I can call your building department and say, hey, I need a favor, fire. This is the one time I call fire. They'll show up. give me an inspection so I can get things going. So it has been absolutely amazing. Which brings me to why I'm here. All of a sudden, I'm hearing about the building department imploding. And I just want to let you know, I've been in communities where the building department has imploded. It destroys the routine that we got going. It does not allow me to get inspections. It does not allow me to progress and things like that. So I just wanted, through talking through commissioners and inspectors and things like that, I was hoping everybody understands that we need to get continuity in there, because I'm about 3/4 done with that building. And if we lose the building department in Newberry and bring in independent inspections, we're going to have problems. A lot of times they want me to open walls. They want to x-ray concrete to see about steel and stuff like that, because they're not going to take their inspections. So I'm asking, I know y'all are trying to work with the building department. If you can do me a favor, try to keep them around till December, because I need them. I really need them to finish that building.
Well, I can tell you, without having all the details of what you're talking about, at 1,000%, we're going to make every effort on the face of the planet to make sure that you don't experience one delay. You guys are going great. The whole city is ready for a pub sub and some sushi and whatever else I go to Publix for all the time. Chicken, fried chicken, all that good stuff. So we'll find out what's going on. Newberry.
Yeah.
Newberry does not implode. We see challenges as opportunities, and we march right on forward, and we overcome.
I'm just an outsider looking in, hearing, and going,
I appreciate all the kind words, and I love to hear it. And Tony was on the roof with me when you said the same thing, that you have not experienced any of the issues that you experienced. I think that's fantastic. I love to hear it, because I always ask every person, whether you're building a Publix or a Bev's Burgers, how was it working with the city of Newberry? Because no matter how good we are, we can always be a little bit better.
Well, and I've been very blessed that I've been able to help. Because like a couple of the comments was, you're our first major commercial development. And all of a sudden, the fire department doesn't know what the routine is. When it comes to knock boxes and comes to sprinkler systems and stuff like that. And I said, man, ask away. I've done this, not 100 times, but probably 50 times.
Yeah.
And I said, and so it's been nice to say, okay, we're the standard. I'm glad that J. Raymond and Publix is setting the standard for the commercial, but you got 9 lots across the street that, that are commercial, and it's a whole different ballgame.
Well, we appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much. And if I have to get out there and do inspections myself, I've knocked on a lot of things looking for the stud in the wall. I can do it again.
I'll tell you what to look for.
All right.
I'll tell you what to look for. Thank you for your all time, and thank you for the support that Newberry has given us.
We appreciate
you.
it.
Got it. Thank you, guys.
All right, other citizen comment.
Bet you don't have that in Gainesville or Oswego County.
I said we're only taking positive comments tonight, so we appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, that's going to move us to manager comments.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a few. I'd say first, I didn't expect that comment, but I'm really proud to hear it, and I would tell the commission that one, I believe that what he said is a direct reflection on the level that the commission has articulated that they want. So, 10 years ago, we had a conversation about the way I believe that local government should operate from an operations perspective, and the commission said that here's our thoughts. And I think over 10 years, we've worked, we strived to reach that. By no means have we arrived, but I will tell you part of what happens, in Mike New's opinion, is it's an everyday conversation that we have about providing superior service, not mediocre service, not basic level service, but we want to be, actually I say this all the time, we want to be in local government what Publix is to grocery stores. We want to excel. And we have our moments where we don't, and our response to that is what messed up and how can we do better? But I'm really proud of our staff. I'm happy to hear great things about Jamie and Rance. I'm happy to hear great things about Scott and the building department. And even when we have a transition, because all organizations have transitions, I think we'll continue to excel, and that'll be the expectation. I guess this is my night to appreciate people. I just wanted to indicate my agreement with Mr. Tripp Norfleet about the best part of the rodeo. Actually, we may disagree. The rodeo was an awesome event, but I do think that the city's participation, particularly our utilities' participation in getting that American flag, was one of the highlights of the rodeo, so we agree on that. I don't know who else in here enjoyed listening to Newberry's favorite developer speak to his role in code enforcement. But I take particular pleasure in hearing that the challenges that he faces in operating an HOA, because it very much seems like the challenges that we face in code enforcement. Commission, we did not discuss when Halloween is going to happen in the city of Newberry. And it seems like the first time that we've been able to get past that. So would you like for me to call a special meeting so the city commission can decide when Halloween? No, I'm kidding. Do you have announcements, Ms. City Clerk, about a new family member? Because if you don't, I will. You will. Okay. Don't let that pass back, or I'll have to ask for the mic to come back to me. We are collecting peanut butter, supporting IFAS. It's a November peanut butter drive for IFAS, so we're going to be doing some social media posts. You see the boxes in all the city buildings. Please participate and encourage the community to participate. Similarly, we're doing a can drive for Blessed Hope. So we got two very worthy causes in Newberry right now that the city of Newberry has partnered with these organizations to help out. Bring your cans in, bring containers of peanut butter in. Mr. Mayor, we received a $50,000 grant from the state of Florida, their Historic Resources Department, to go out and do ground penetrating radar and establish where the history behind the cemetery out near Easton. This is a cemetery that was predominantly African American, and it's been preserved in those woods, but not accessible to the public. So I think with this grant, we'll be able to obtain a lot more information and make this piece of Newberry's history something known to the public so that we can all learn and appreciate our history. Mr. Mayor, wastewater funding is on front and center on the front of everybody's mind in Newberry, and I think we're at a critical juncture. We are about $50 million short in funding, and the state of Florida recognizes that we're short in funding, and they're asking us to fill that gap. The best, most immediate way to fill that gap is a $49 million grant application that we have into DEP, and they're going to make a decision on that in December. The chain of command for the state of Florida is Ron DeSantis. It's his chief of staff, and then the Secretary of DEP, and then the Deputy Secretary of DEP. We are asking all resources to help us advocate for Newberry. Newberry's had some success in the legislature, but we have not scored in any real wins with our grant application like other communities in this part of Florida, and we very much need this. We don't have a fantastic answer outside of this. We do have a Plan B backup, but it's not a fantastic Plan B. So we have about a 2-month stretch where we're really going to push hard to see if we can have success with that grant application. Any ideas or thoughts that the commission have or contacts that the commission has, now's the time to exercise them. And we will re-forward speaking points on that to anybody that says, hey, I know somebody, I'd like to have a conversation. Will you highlight the speaking points? We'll be happy to do that. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my comments.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Attorney?
December 18th is our ethics presentation at the law firm. You all are welcome to come, and hope you put it on the calendar. And Danielle and Kirsten always make it a fun event, so I'm sure that they'll do that again this year, and everyone's welcome. We'll have all of our cities and local government entities that'll be there, so it'll be a time for you all to have some collegiality and hopefully a good time as well, talking to the other cities.
Kirsten promised ribs this year.
Is that right? Okay.
She was right here.
If that's what she said, then that's what we will do.
Yeah,
we'll make sure we have the ribs. Mr. Mayor, the other thing is that the presentation this evening, I just want to thank my colleagues, Pat, Jennifer, Wes, Jerry made a great presentation. It was the most understandable presentation about CDDs that I've ever seen. And the way it was boiled down to, look, we're going to borrow $47 million. We're going to amortize it over 30 years, and it's set rate financing, 5.1% we can get on our bond financing right now, which makes it affordable. And then boil it down to phase one, we have 300 units that are going in there, and, you know, to get to that level of detail so that it's so understandable and affordable for the residents. And then I think the other piece of it is that there's got to be a certain amount of trust with the developer that is going in. I just thought the presentation was very well put to bring the first CDD in our city. And I can tell you that the other cities we represent, our CDDs are happening as well. So it's not just Newberry. And when you look at that sort of financing for a larger development, it just makes the common sense when it's boiled down to that kind of presentation. So I appreciate what went on here this evening. Maybe we'll take this road show and take it to the other communities as well, because it was very understandable.
Only if you bring ribs.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it.
I agree. I mean, a lot of boxes clicked after all of those presentations, so I concur, and I'm looking forward to December 18th. That's always a fun night. You make ethics fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the most exciting subject of all.
It depends on what part of the night we're talking about.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk.
Well, I guess I'm gonna.
We got two things to brag on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Grandbaby first.
Let's do it.
My first grandbaby, Matthew, was born last Friday. And we were sure he was gonna be born when,
Middle of a hurricane.
Milton went through South Florida, because that's where we were at, and, or Central, Florida. But, he's healthy, mom's healthy, my daughter Christine, and everybody's happy, and boy, what a joy.
Awesome.
Really is.
Congratulations. Yeah.
And the other is in celebration of Florida City Government Week. Last week, the city had their parade at Newberry Elementary School for the pre-K through second graders. I forgot my train of thought. There were about 275 students.
Oh, it looked like
The parade.
twice that in the pictures. They were all out there. All the trucks were going up and down.
And we have been doing this for over 10 years now. We've changed it, every so often to try to really make it work for the students and our workforce. And I really think that we've got it now.
We nailed it.
And
the flame and truck
the flame and truck
certainly helped out.
Commissioner Mason was driving, but this is a parade to build a rapport with the young children and our employees, and not specific employees, but the city, how we provide services to the city. There was one other thing that I wanted to say. I was really, I watched the video, and we do have it for anyone who wants to watch it. It's on our website. But I was really proud of our staff, and I want to thank them. I want to thank our elected officials, our commission, and Manager New for supporting this event. Because, as I said, I think it has gotten better and better throughout the years. And Florida League of Cities sponsors statewide. And they provide the educational packets that we give to the school. So that for age appropriate, whatever grades, whatever students you're trying to reach or communicate with, they have the right materials to learn about our services. So I think it's fun was had by all, and I really appreciate the support.
Well, Miss Judy, we appreciate you taking the lead, making it all happen, keeping it on track. The kids love it. They look forward to it. I hear nothing but good things. The social media posts afterwards are always so much fun. So keep it going.
Thank you. And a special thanks to Janine, because obviously I was out of pocket. And
You had things going on, yeah.
And she took the lead along with, I'm not going to start naming names because
Well,
I will miss someone.
it's dangerous. It's dangerous. That's right.
So, but I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, man. We appreciate all of that. Commissioner Clark?
Mr. Mayor, I got a couple things. I know we've had our first responders. We heard about it a few weeks back. And I want to say thank you to our first responders. They have really been in some serious, saving some lives. We've had some serious accidents here in the last few weeks. So they've done some great things. And I mean, interlocal, whatever we do to help each other, and they're on their own. So I want to say it does not go unrecognized. They've done some great things, saving some people. I want to say thanks to Jerry and Stacy for their one-on-one time. If you want to know something, I'm telling you, get with that lady and that man. You can get it figured out on LDRs and comprehensive plans. They're knowledgeable, so I appreciate that. The Veterans Memorial Brick Campaign is still ongoing. We did an interview last week. It seemed to help generate. We've gotten some more brick sales going on. Debbie and I are going to do a TV20 interview just before Veterans Day. I think it'll generate some more funding and possibly.
Do the morning show. The morning show's great. You got to be there about 4:30 in the morning. But you're a Marine, so that's what time you wake up anyway.
Get up sometime around noon, so don't worry about it. I'll get there. No, and, just say there's a lot happening in the world, and it seems like it ain't slowing down. So God bless our troops in America, but there's a lot happening, so that's what I got.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Farnsworth?
Mike kind of alluded to it, but I will confirm it, that Halloween is actually going to be celebrated in the city of Newberry on the 31st.
On the 31st. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Can we get a CDD for the wastewater plant?
I was looking at
No, that's why I've continued to ask all the experts about CDDs for wastewater. And I'm not sure I got 100% answer on it just yet, but it doesn't seem
City can put its own water.
Yeah. The issue is with Tallahassee. Tallahassee continues to tell us growth has to pay for growth. And right now, the ratepayer pays for the operation of the plant, development pays for the construction of the plant. I'm not sure that's the answer to your question, but I've heard 3 or 4 people try to give me the answer to that question, but it always tends to keep coming back as no.
Yeah. Before anybody says anything derogatory, I want to,
We know, FSU.
yeah, I want to congratulate them on the 1 win this year. And they came within 3 touchdowns to Miami, so we're starting to surge.
I'm really grateful for FSU this year because Gators looking real good in comparison.
But that's all I have.
All right, thank you, sir. Commissioner Martin.
I just appreciate everybody's buy-in with what's going on in the city. This is a great place to live. We got great events going on all the time. The rodeo, Greenfield, the churches with fall festivals. I just love living here.
Thank you, sir.
Nice.
Commissioner Mazon.
I got quite a bit. Jerry, man, that one-on-one was nice. I think he undersold it, but his renderings are always, his drawings are always on point. I understood everything perfect between him and Stacy. Like your hair, by the way. Nice. The second thing I wanted to say was, to go back to what went on this weekend. I've had a couple people say there was so much going on between the rodeo. And my daughter has become a loyal contributor to the rodeo. She wants to go every year now. We make sure, 2 years ago, last year, this year, she's always asking. She had tickets. I don't know where she got them from, but she had tickets and she wanted to go again. We went Friday and she wanted to go again Saturday, so she took her sister. The rodeo was very nice. Your son did very good. I think he killed that cow, though. The jerk. He did. What else did I have? Congratulations to Randa. Absolutely. Hometown Realty, correct? So she had a ribbon cutting last week. Congratulations to you. And the Fall Festival over at Easton was a nice hit. It was, as you can see, Jake. They were sponsoring. Jake has brain cancer. He's a 4-year-old. If you want to see more details on that, go to Greenfield Facebook page. They have more info. You can donate money. They're doing a GoFundMe program. Good job, Mike, staff. As a matter of fact, to what Clark said about our first responders, the moment they left that parade, it was just that fast. They had an accident in front of Publix. So they did like a U-turn from there straight to there. And that's how fast it works. So good job. And it is a great city to live in. And I think everybody around us is jealous of it. So whatever we're doing is doing good. We're doing good. So that's all.
Well,
No, I don't. That's right. Why did the zombie, Halloween joke, why did the zombie take a nap? Because he was dead tired.
Well, as your representative on the Latch County.
Come on now.
No, we gave you the obligatory chuckle. You got it. Even Tim smiled, right? Yeah. As your representative on the Latch County League of Cities, I can tell you the other cities are. Like, we always talk about what's going on, and I just have to stop talking about Newberry because it eventually just sounds like bragging, and that's easy for me to do, brag about Newberry. But and on that note, I just want to say thank you to the Newberry Historical Association. They hosted their first public event. I appreciate the city staff did a great job of making that accessible to the public. So for 2 weekends, Friday and Saturday night, folks came in. They had paranormal folks there. They had storytellers there. I learned things about the Newberry jails, research and stories. It was really a lot of fun. Some people came because they wanted to look for ghosts. Some people came because they wanted to hear those historic stories. But it just was a very, very nice time for people to come and see a building that's been here for over 100 years, hear stories about the building, about folks who spent a little time there. And so I appreciate the Newberry Historical Association for doing that. And I think it's going to be the first of many events where they work with not only historic buildings that the city owns, but privately owned, and open them up to get the public to come in so that we can start teaching all of our new residents about what, the Newberry's history, what's been here for a long time, why did it get built, all those kinds of things. They're off to a great start, completing the vision that you guys had when you created the NHA. So they also are really gung-ho board, and they'd like to make sure that as we're working on the part of the Little Red Schoolhouse that's going to be the museum, that they've got some input there because they've already got ideas about how to have rotating exhibits and those kinds of things to bring folks in. Main Street has a festival coming up. What's the date of that? It's November. Y'all know off the 16th? 16? Just want to make sure we are.
That's a Saturday.
Yeah, November 16, right? November 16. So come out to the Fall Festival. Even with 2 hurricanes, the Scarecrow Road still looking good. I know it's not everything everybody wanted it to be this year, but we did have 2 hurricanes blow through and kind of slowed us down there a little bit. All the Christmas plans are progressing really nicely. I think we're going to have a great Christmas season. And the Newberry High School has started the holiday food drive. Every year they try to make sure that every family that needs it goes home with a turkey and a Thanksgiving package meal for the holiday season. So if you've got kids at home, have them grab a pie crust or something and bring it in and drop it off at the school. It's great. And I agree, all the activities in Newberry are there. Something every night is going on. Something's always happening. You got to split up your time. But it's all also local folks keeping that hometown feel, and everywhere you go, it's meet, talk, chat, make new friends. So well done, Newberry. That's all I have. We are.
Nice hats.
And nice hats. Very well. I think these are the extras. That's why y'all got some. So
Nice hats.
thank you so much.
And vote.
And vote. Yeah, don't forget to vote. 33% early voting turnout. Great job. We are adjourned.